Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Last Page podcast.
We are Niki and Mariana, and today we are talking about The Wedding People book club. It's our first official book club episode via the podcast. I'm so excited.
I'm happy to be back. Podcast book club edition.
I know. I feel like even though we took, 1 week off, I feel like we haven't recorded in forever.
No, I know. I feel like I haven't seen you in forever. I saw you on Wednesday, but I feel like it's been so long.
Yeah, we did finally get back from Disney World. We've been talking about it for weeks, it seems. And I, for one, am exhausted. I'm sure you're exhausted being on the different time zone, like majorly different time zone.
I'm exhausted, and full disclosure, everybody, I am a little bit sick. So if I take a little bit longer to get my thoughts across, just know that I'm not all there.
We do have a full doc of like notes and stuff that we want to talk about. And I wish I could show you guys some of Mariana's notes that she put in there because really, some of them, they're not quite, but it's just, she'll know. She'll know what she wants to say.
What did I write? I wrote something and I was like, friendship again. And?
Yeah, and I was like, and
that's
what?
It.
And you're like, just and. Just and. Well,
and
what was you have to tell me your favorite Disney World park? Because that was your first time there.
Yeah. Oh, it was my first time at Disney World. First time in Orlando. Don't know that I will be going back, but Disney was fun. I was just so tired. We talked about the shoes we were going to bring. I brought my Hoka's and I wore them every single day. And I brought Dr. Scholl's insoles. I saw you asked about that, Niki, and someone's like, I brought my Dr. Scholl's. They did nothing for me. They did nothing. And then I removed them the first day because the first day was the worst day for my feet. And then, anyway,
really?
Dr. Scholl's did not do it. But I think it was just like the exhaustion every day. We would like wake up at 6:30, 7, and then be back by like 9 p.m.
Oh my God.
Even on days where we're like, we're going to come home early today.
Yeah. I feel like it wasn't even so much the walking, it was the standing. But I was pretty sad because my Hoka's also that I brought, I really thought that they were going to do me right. And they did me wrong. I have to say that.
Maybe we need to be on cloud girlies. I've heard on clouds are
Yes. I've also heard that. Okay.
I've been to the store that they have in Williamsburg when I was in New York. And it's cute. Like they have so many things. And they have beanies. They have like you could walk out like all decked out.
Wow. I didn't even really know about that brand. I feel like I just heard about them recently.
Yeah, I know that Zendaya is an ambassador for them. I'm pretty sure.
I'll buy what she tells me.
Boots. Yeah, but no, Disney was fun. My favorite ride was, if you guys have been, probably the whole like Avatar experience, whatever day that was.
Ooh, yeah, that was Animal
really
Kingdom.
Fun. It was so weird. Like I haven't been to Disneyland in a while or like theme parks, but the fact that like you had to like straddle something to get on a ride, or like even the Tron one where you had to like that was crazy to me. And they like lock you in on the back.
That was really crazy. Tron was so cool. I wish that ride was longer because honestly that was one of my favorites.
That one was fun because you got to go outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a new experience to have that like motorcycle type sit. I've never ridden a ride like that before. That was also new for me.
No, me either.
I liked the Guardians of the Galaxy
ride. The above ones. Which was that one again?
That was the one where it was like a roller coaster, but not. And it was inside and we were going around the moon. We were like flying around the moon.
Oh, yeah.
That was crazy. Cool. I'm so sad they don't have that
The Tiana
here.
ride was nice.
Yes.
That one was cute.
Tiana, you guys, that is my favorite movie. My favorite Disney movie, Princess and the Frog. And I was so happy the whole time.
Maybe we can insert photos of the shirts that we wore because like we all wore a little theme shirt. I wore Winnie the Pooh and then Niki wore a Tiana character.
Yeah, Ray. And yeah, that was really cute. Yeah, we got those all from Etsy cute. So we could match one of the days because how could you go to Disney World and not match? I feel like you have to.
I know everyone was matching like from the first day we got there. We were there for like 4 days in Disney World. And I feel like everyone had like a theme. Like on Valentine's Day, there was families that wore little like cute little red shirts or like hearts. It was so sweet. It was sweet. There was a lot of people like. That's one thing about me is like crowds are not for me really, but I felt like it was fine enough. We didn't have to wait too long. Mm-hmm. Whatever we did, the lightning pass stuff was so nice. Would recommend.
Yeah, it was worth it. I was like so against it because I just think it's absolutely insane that it's like $20 per ride, you guys, if you want to get the fast pass now.
Yeah, but you're already literally
it's worth
spending
it.
thousands of dollars to go there.
No, it's like it's against my moral code to want to spend $20 per ride when you're already spending money on the park. But once we were there and it was hot and we just wanted to get on the ride, because some of the wait times were like 2 hours plus, and it was we just basically just walked on. So it's definitely worth getting them.
Yeah, it blew my mind, like, how technology has evolved. Like, why am I literally a grandmother? How technology has evolved for, like, all the ride wait times, obviously the passes, and, like, like, the different seating arrangements. Like, it was kind of crazy. Also, sorry, guys, if my lighting is off, just know that we have some Wi-Fi issues in my apartment. So if I look really off, I'm looking at the camera right now, and Nikki, you might be annoyed. But it will be back next week.
That's okay. For our audio listeners, if you guys didn't know, we're available on all or most of the main audio platforms, but we also have a YouTube channel. So depending on where you're watching us, also Spotify has video. So you may or may not be seeing Mariana or not, but.
Yeah. You can also skip this one out if you need to, because I look really yellow.
Maybe this is an audio type episode. Well, I think it's fine. I think you look fab.
No, but it was so fun. Like, we went for our best friend's 30th birthday, and I think she had a great time, and everyone was like, honestly, I loved it. I love being with my friends.
It was so fun. We got to eat lots of yummy snacks. That was one of my favorite
parts.
The food is so cheap.
I mean, the food is very affordable there, more so than I thought.
Oh, way more affordable than Disneyland, California. Because I feel like everything here, it was crazy because the meals, like you could get like a full, chicken and rice bowl for like $15, which to Californians and New Yorkers and Londoners, like that's a pretty affordable rice bowl,
Yeah, and one thing I will say is beware of when you order any sort of beverage and drink. They do not give lids in Disney World. So you will just walk around with an open container. And they
give huge ones. They were literally like this big.
Yeah, like a liter. Yeah, it's actually kind of crazy. I feel like I was like, can everybody drink some of this?
Yeah, we were like all sharing and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I want to go back. Maybe not right this second, but
would
in
recommend
like a month.
Margaritaville, you guys. Very, very easy to get to and from every single park. Mm-hmm. I feel like we would time everything perfectly. Monorail, like whatever. It was like so easy.
Yeah. There was a shuttle on the property. So yeah, we stayed in Margaritaville in like the little cottages because we had a group of 10 and it was perfect for our group because everybody got a room. Everybody's room had a bathroom. So it was like a little Airbnb.
Crazy. I didn't realize till the last day we were like tidying up. I was like, wait, everyone down here also had a bathroom?
Yeah, no, it was so nice. And we had like a little pool on the backyard. And we did have to Uber to and from the parks, but I think it was only ever like a $20 Uber. And then, if you're splitting it with a group, it was a good option for groups as opposed to doing like a bunch of hotel rooms.
Yeah, I agree. And it was nice for everyone to like come home and then leave together.
And we could cook
in the mornings.
We had like eggs and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was nice. And then we had one day off in the middle, which we went to Korean barbecue. And it was so good. And then we did an escape room, as we do.
That was so fun.
And it was fun. It was like a funny one.
We should do an escape room in London. Do you guys have any there? I'm sure there's some.
I'm sure there's some. I'll look.
Wait,
that would be fun.
So that's our next big trip. And hopefully I'm going to try and book the hotel like this weekend. I think David's ready to book it. So
yeah. And I did see on Fable, which we'll talk about the book club, but on the Fable chat for this book, someone was saying like, if you're in London and want to do an in-person stuff, like let us know. Nikki will be here. We'll let you guys know when, but we can also arrange a sweet little book cafe moment.
Wait, we have to do that. Guys, please, if you're near London, let us know if you would like to do a little meetup because I would be so down. And then I can qualify it as more of a business trip.
Perfect.
So it'll be a business trip for me. Wow. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited. Okay. And maybe that month in April, end of April going into May, we could read a book set in London, set in the UK or something, a little sweet little British book.
Yeah, let's all finish Magnolia Parks.
No, let's not. Let's not. Let's not.
Let's not and say we did.
Let's not and say we did. Well, what do you think? Should we just jump in?
Yeah, I want to talk about it. I feel like we've only had like a hot second to debrief. Also, we were together for an entire week. Not once did we talk about like any of the books that we're reading. I feel like we were just like reading a bunch and we never debriefed.
Oh, that was the other funny thing is that anytime we were waiting in lines at the park, we were both like Kindles out reading. Whenever we were sitting down to eat, we were reading. So we were reading a lot, but we were not reading this. And in full transparency, I finished this book probably about an hour ago as we're recording this. Literally, like as Mariana's texting me, she's like, hey, we're going to get on FaceTime in like an hour. Are you done? I was like, I'm almost done. So
you messaged
fresh.
me. It was like 7 a.m. here, which is I think like midnight your time. You're like, so I'm gonna finish this in the morning.
No, literally,
like,
when
right.
I went to sleep, I was like falling asleep reading it, and I think I still had like 30% left. So once I woke up this morning, it was like go, go, go. But I feel like I was able to get through pretty quickly because it was a lot of dialogue, you know?
I feel like it was a good, you kind of like skipped through. I feel like it was a good length. I have it here with me. I read some of it on Kindle and then some of it on, or like my actual book. And this is I think, did we show you guys last time? This is the UK edition. It's so very cute. Different than, if you can't see it, there's like, it's not the same. So look it up. It's very cute. But yeah, I finished it, physical copy. Go me.
Love that.
Last night.
Wowza. Okay, well, book club. The way that we've kind of outlined this is similar to if you watch our Onyx Storm episode. We're going to kind of interweave a lot of the questions and discussion topics through the outline. So we're going to go through the book as it reads, and then we'll kind of elaborate and talk about it that way instead of doing a full summary at the beginning and then doing questions. I feel like it makes it like more organic.
Yeah.
But also, obviously, before we start, this is going to be like one big, huge trigger warning because there's obviously, if you've read this book, which if you're watching this video, I assume you did finish it, there's some very sensitive topics in this, which we are not in any way like qualified to talk about or trained to talk about. So if that is something that's sensitive to you, maybe sit this one out. It's totally fine. I just feel like it's hard to talk about some of these topics without worrying about, like, I just don't want to say anything that is offensive in any way, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. And this is every take that we have. And obviously this is an opinion that is formed based off of stuff that we've gone through. Some stuff we have, some stuff we haven't. So just take that with, I guess, a little bit of a warning. If you feel like this is a sensitive topic for you, you don't have to go through this with us.
You don't have to listen to us yet. You really don't. But thank you for being here if you're watching. Wow. Okay. Should I kick it off?
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, we're opening up in Rhode Island. Okay. Phoebe, our main character, arrives at this.
Wait, Nikki, tell them what book we read.
Oh, we read The Wedding People by, who is this even by? Alison Espach. Espach?
Either or.
This is the USA cover. And the UK cover is very different, which is so random. But yeah, I kind of went into this book not really knowing what it was about. And I feel like it took me by a lot of surprise. So
yeah.
So the main character, Phoebe, basically arrives at this hotel with no luggage or anything. And she kind of realizes when she's checking in that everyone else there is for a wedding. And she kind of somehow slipped through the cracks and was able to book the last available room. And pretty soon into the book, we find out that Phoebe has basically checked into the hotel to kill herself. So again, I don't know what words we can or cannot say on YouTube. I don't think that we can use the S word. So kill herself might be the better way to say it. And that's kind of how they described it mostly in the book, I noticed, which I thought was interesting instead of using the like S word for it.
Yeah.
But one of the quotes that I really liked from the beginning of this said, "There's no such thing as a happy place because when you're happy, everywhere is a happy place. And when you're sad, everywhere is a sad place." And I feel like that was a very good, this book talks so much about her depression. And I feel like that's the pinnacle of somebody who's like really struggling with anxiety and depression. It's like when you're happy, everything's happy. And when you're sad, everything's sad.
Yeah. Yeah. So. Like the setting, it's not about the setting. It's not about the people. It's kind of like the state of mind that you're in. And like you're bringing that with you throughout, I guess, like every experience that you're having throughout the day. I thought that like Nikki said, I had no idea what the book was about going into it. But I think at the end, I actually really enjoyed it. So from the beginning, I feel like the author kind of puts us in the headspace of Phoebe because it is third person. So we're kind of like all knowing, we're seeing everything kind of play out, and the dialogue is like side by side with each person that comes in and out of the story. But I felt like from the get-go, I actually felt really upset reading the book. Like I was like going through it and I was like, oh my God. I think it was a way for an author to kind of put us right where Phoebe was to begin with, which I actually really felt like she did a good job. Like I started reading it and I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I can even continue reading it. And it was a little bit tough to get through in the beginning, but I feel like it turned around. But I think that's one thing I liked about the author and how she was able to do that.
Yeah. No, I felt the exact same way. I think I even put it in our Instagram broadcast channel. If you guys want to join that, that's kind of where we like chat a little bit more day to day and stuff. But I remember I was getting my nails done and I was like physically feeling so sad reading this book. And I was like, it's kind of like the author intended that. And I think the whole book, it really gets you into the headspace of the characters and kind of is like, wow, like I really feel like crap reading this right now. And so it makes you connect with the characters more. And the way that she was able to do that, even in the first few chapters, I thought was really cool. And normally I'm not the biggest fan of third person. Like I typically prefer first person, but I really liked that this was third person because it gave us really good insight into all the characters and what they were thinking.
Yeah, I did too. And I, again, didn't know it was going to be third person, which I also normally stay away from as well. I'm a very much like a dual perspective reader. I like being put into the actual headspace. And I feel like she was able to do that without even needing to be Phoebe herself, like reading as Phoebe, feeling as Phoebe. Like we were able to feel that as like a friend of a friend kind of thing. And that's what it felt like. So
yeah, that was very interesting. I did like that. You also had a note in here about the emerald dress.
Oh yes,
which I didn't even really realize.
This is my note, and I didn't even talk about it.
Yeah.
I looked up emerald just because I feel like, I don't know, colors to me always mean a lot when they're brought up repeatedly. And I added this note after I finished the book, and I feel like she walks into the hotel in Rhode Island, and she's wearing this like long emerald gown that she's kind of been saving for a special occasion. And I guess to her, like, this is a special moment. But throughout the book, she kind of references it as like a dress that she would look at but never want to wear because it's like, oh, I probably shouldn't wear that. I'll just go back to my regular black dress. Emerald, I looked it up, and it's symbolizes renewal and balance. And to me, that felt like, again, after I finished the book, I was able to look back and see like every time she went to get the dress, it wasn't the right moment for her. Like it wasn't time kind of thing. And she kind of recognized that because she wasn't able to step into the dress and feel like, this is me starting over, until she put it on and literally like left her bags, left her house, and went to Rhode Island. It was kind of like, this is like literally physically stepping into her renewal. Even though in her mind it was the end and she was going to go there to kill herself, it was still, in a way, I don't know. To me, I felt like it meant a lot. Like that's how you feel in an outfit really determines your mood, and sometimes you're like saving it for a special occasion and it never comes, and then you never wear it and the tag's still on. But maybe this was like a moment for her to like start anew.
Yeah, that is a good note too about paying attention to colors. And I feel like especially in this book there was a lot of symbolism and like a lot of metaphors, and she was really I really liked the writing style. It felt very simple and read very simple, but in a way you would read something and be like, whoa. It was like she would say the simplest things, but it was a really like complex revelation about life. Yeah, impactful for sure. So yeah, I feel like I need to pay more attention when I'm reading in general to like little symbols like that. I feel like you're good at that, like paying attention.
I'm good at like seeing foreshadow. I did struggle a little bit. Like toward the end, I was like, I feel like she was very to the point, but then you had a lot to take away from the end, where to me it was like, oh, okay, perfect. So we'll get there. But
interesting.
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know if anyone else felt like emerald meant something, or like her stepping into the dress after so long meant something as well.
So basically, as the story goes on, we learn a little bit more about Phoebe's backstory and her divorce. So she's obviously there because she's had her life fall apart, basically. She is a professor, was married to a professor, and then he left her for a colleague that they were both friends with, Mia. And Phoebe just struggles a lot with her identity, infertility, feeling good enough, pretty enough. Like it just was a big thing about her, like her whole life is falling apart at this point.
It was really sad. This is like when the depression of it all kind of seemed to me as a reader like so overwhelming. Like, of course she's so upset. Of course, it's like all these things at once. And I feel like sometimes in life you kind of feel like that, like, oh my God, I lost my job. Oh my God, this. Oh my God, I can't do this. And it kind of piles on where you kind of feel like there's no way out. So I think this is when everything was happening in the divorce. That's when I was like, oh my God, this is so upsetting.
Yeah. It just felt like a lot. And I felt like I was put into her mindset, and it helps you feel how awful she's feeling by getting into that mindset.
Yeah.
And so then this is kind of when we're starting to meet the wedding people, which I actually liked throughout the book how she kept calling them the wedding people. Like it made sense to me, you know. Also, side note, a lot of you know I am currently planning a wedding for next year. It was really like tripping me out to read about this. Like being engaged, because it's very like the whole thing is very like, what am I doing with my life existential? And it's like, so I've always been like that, where I get panicky, where I'm like, am I doing the right thing? Am I in the right place? Am I this and this? And that's like what the whole book is about. And I was like, oh, am I like Lila? Like, am I like this? And it was like so crazy to read about. Anyways, so basically the bride, Lila, is really interesting. She reminded me a lot of Galinda from Wicked. But
yeah,
on
me
the
too,
surface,
actually.
Yeah, right? Like, so like she's very surface level, very spoiled, very bratty. And on the surface, like, just conceited, you know, and she tells Phoebe, oh, you can't kill yourself because it's going to ruin my wedding week. But then they start talking a little bit more, and she kind of learns about her insecurities. She has like a strained relationship with her mother. Her friends kind of suck. More insight into her relationship with Gary, because that was like a weird situation. So that was a really interesting contrast to Phoebe, because Phoebe was very brooding, very down, and Lila was sort of similar in that way, but it was such an opposite. It was like manic versus depressive, you know what I mean? Where Phoebe was very solemn and very to the point, whereas Lila was like and like always had something crazy going on.
It was like her stream of consciousness was just word vomit the whole time, which I actually found really endearing, because there's definitely been times where I'm like walking to a room and I'm like, oh frick, what do I say? And then I like say my whole entire life for no reason. But I felt like I actually grew to like Lila a lot throughout her story, because like you said, you kind of feel for her in that she's not really herself to most people. But then when she obviously hangs out with Phoebe and encounters Phoebe, she like, I don't know, I felt like they were so sweet. I also felt at one moment, I was like, maybe they'll fall in love.
I know, imagine. Yeah, it was interesting. Like, I really honestly had no idea where the story was going to go when they first met, and when Lila was like, you can't kill yourself, it's my wedding, like, you're ruining everything. And then she had to come in and help her with the food in her teeth and all this stuff. It was like this really weird, interesting friendship was developing. And they also talked a lot about Lila's relationship with her mother, because Phoebe, we find out, didn't have a mom growing up because her mom died when she was born. And this is like a long quote. I'll kind of paraphrase it, but I thought it was really interesting about mother-daughter relationships. But it was basically like, having a mother allows you to be your worst self ever, because you know at the end of the day your mom will love you. And Phoebe always was astonished by how mothers just took it, because they knew sometimes they were awful too, and the mothers had made their own mistakes. And I feel like that reminds me a lot of me and my mom, because, and I was going to ask too, like, do you feel like this represents your relationship with your own mother? And as we ask you guys questions, please feel free to drop your answers in the comments, because it's so fun when we get to chat with y'all. But like, I was such like a bitch to my mom when I was a teenager. Yeah. And I feel like she always took it with such grace, because she probably knew like, oh, I mean, we're all women are this way when we're growing up and figuring things out. And it's like so
I feel like I was never like mean to my mom, but only because I was like scared of her. like not in a way where she was like intimidating, but it's like I want her to be like proud of me kind of thing. But I feel like I feel it now, where like you go home and you revert back to your old self. I feel like I hear people say that all the time, where it's like I'm 15 again when I go home for Christmas and I'm in my room, and like you kind of don't want to become that. But I don't know, I feel like it just it just happens because they know you so well. It's like when you're with your best friend and you could be literally so annoying and mean and disgusting. But I don't know. I think it just depends what you were expected to be when you were little, and then when you became, and you're like, oh, I'm not that. I'm not who you thought I was going to be, and I think that's okay. But then when I come home, it still doesn't feel good enough.
Yeah, I know. It is very interesting. I feel like mother-daughter relationships are always so
I know.
different and strained in certain ways. It's just like I feel like on the deepest level though, like moms get it because they were teenage girls once. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like they kind of look at us and
best.
probably are like, I was just like
You have no idea.
Yeah.
So like,
that
girl,
was
you don't know
interesting.
anything.
Ugh, that was crazy.
Oh,
Okay,
one thing
so-
I had to say about this was going back to like Lila and her mom's relationship, where they seemed to butt head a lot, but whatever. But I felt like throughout the entire book, not once did I see it being like clearly communicated from her mom to be like, do not marry this man. It was kind of like, you're making the same mistake I did. Like, she wasn't clear. I'm like, maybe if she would have told her up front, like, don't marry Gary because this, and this, like, it might have been different. But I felt like their relationship was weird, and also like the painting and everything. It was just like a lot of like beating around the bush. Like, obviously your mom loves you, but she can't tell you that you shouldn't marry this man. Like, maybe I missed it. I don't know.
Yeah, the relationship with the mom was very odd. I felt like that was hard for me to kind of follow. And also it felt almost like generational trauma. Like, you know, it's like her mom was making that mistake when she was young, and so she didn't know how to tell her daughter any different kind of thing. And like, you are your mother in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's true. Or like the story like the stories that she would tell and everything. I felt like it was, I don't know, there was something missing. Maybe I just didn't understand what role the mom character was playing, besides just like showing us why Lila is how she is a little bit.
Yeah, I felt like that her character to me was the least clear to me. Like, I had the hardest time kind of remembering like what was going on with the mom, what her point was.
I also thought Pauline was the mom for a while, but then I think Pauline's the receptionist. I forget the mom's name. Paul.
Oh, her name is it's not Phoebe. It was some similar. They all had a similar name.
Paula, right? Or no?
I don't know.
I forget.
Okay, so now that Lila is like gone doing wedding stuff, Phoebe is ready to fully commit to offing herself. So she kind of has turned the whole situation into this big ritual where she wants everything to be perfect. So she's like, I gotta order my room service, but then the room service isn't working because it's the wedding weekend. She wants to listen to her music on a CD, but then the CD is skipping. So that's a problem. She wants to smoke, and like all these things keep getting interrupted. And to me, that felt like a sign that Phoebe never like actually wanted to go through with it.
Yeah.
And that kind of calls back, obviously skipping way ahead till the end. It's like Lila was waiting for all these things. She was like, oh, I thought something was going to go wrong. Like, I kept thinking something at the wedding was going to go wrong. And then when the car pulls up and it's wrong, she's like, oh, there it is. There's my sign. Like, when you're not really committed to something, anything turns into like a little bit of a sign to not go through with it. And that's kind of what that felt like to me.
To me, it's like the feeling of desperation, like whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. Like you're so desperate for this guy to see you, and then you're like, oh my god, I saw him at the coffee shop. Oh my god, I saw him. It's like you're looking for signs. Of course, you're gonna see it come through. It's the same thing with like a bad thing too. You're like waiting for the other shoe to drop in your relationship or for work or whatever. Like it's gonna happen because you're gonna piece things together that are just things. Like I agree with what you're saying, but I also think it was kind of comical in a way of like she was about to think, oh, here we go again. This isn't working. Oh, the cigarette. Oh, I actually hate smoking. Oh, I actually this. Like it was just a little bit, to me, comical in a way that's like everything is going wrong when to her it was supposed to be the easiest thing to get through. Like, of course, room service isn't up and running right now, and all I wanted was a meal. Now I have to go and kill myself on an empty stomach. Like, who thinks about that? Like, if you're so if you're so worried that you're gonna have to do it on an empty stomach, why are you doing it?
Yeah. And it is funny how she almost turned it into this like funny situation where it's like, this is like the most tragic and like sad, awful thing that she was going to do. But then it's also like, oh, here we go again. You know, I felt like that
Yeah.
created this really interesting like juxtaposition of the two feelings.
Yeah.
And it was especially the way too
Which,
she
like,
was like listening out the window to the speeches, and like it was just like a whole the scene was crazy.
Yeah. And I also thought it was, I mean, this is kind of, I don't know what it relates to, but I remembered that they were saying how she got the better room. She got the nicer room than the bride. And she's like,
Yeah.
wait, why do you have a nice room and all you're going to do in here is like try to kill yourself? Like, this should have been my room. Why didn't I get this room? And then she's like, I don't know. And then later she goes into Lila's room. She's like, actually, yeah, your room is like so bad. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like it was kind of like waiting for the other thing, but then good things were happening to her. Why did she get this upgrade? She doesn't even know. She doesn't even know why her thing was accepted. It's like those could have all been signs too for her to like maybe enjoy the week that you have here. Like, I don't know, but of course you're just looking for what you want to see.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was kind of shocked. Phoebe does end up taking all the cat painkillers, which she has because her cat passed away, obviously. So she has all these cat painkillers with her. And as she's done it, first of all, did you think she was going to actually go through with it?
So I thought that she was going to do something. Like, I don't know if it was going to be that or like jump off the balcony. Like, I don't know what she was going to do, but I felt like she was going to try to do something and then it was going to go wrong, obviously. Yeah. But when she did it, I was kind of like, oh shit, like she's actually doing it. I wonder how now this is going to turn out, because in my mind I was like, she probably won't do it at all. Weird about the cat pills again. I don't know much about that, but
yeah,
I thought that was interesting.
I kind of thought that it was going to happen how it played out, where she was going to take them and just throw them back up. Because I feel like and she even said that. She's like, this is what you see in the movies. Like, once you do something and regret it, you just like throw them back up or whatever, which is obviously what ended up happening. And I thought it was kind of like cute and funny. And again, it's like, this should be a really tragic scene. But it's like, she takes the pills. She's getting really sleepy. She's sitting out there listening to the speeches. And she's like, wait, I have to hear how this speech ends. And she can feel herself like going in and out. And she's like, no, wait a minute. I can't die right now because I need to figure out how this speech is going to end. Like, this is crazy. And so then she kind of throws him up and she's like, okay, well, you know, hopefully I'm good now. And she just ends up like falling asleep on the floor.
But it's another thing where it's like, she doesn't need to hear the speeches. Like, if she really went committed, like you said, like to actually killing herself, none of this would matter. But it just kind of goes to show again that like her heart was never really in it. And she kept saying like, my psychiatrist or my therapist said that I wasn't the type to do this, and like, look at me, prove him wrong. And they're like, oh, actually he was right.
Yeah, it was just a cry for help, really. Like, I don't think she ever actually wanted to go through with it. And she even said too, like, when she finally realized it, the quote says, she realizes it with such certainty that it feels like the only thing that she's ever known to be true about herself. Where it's like, why am I doing this? I did never want to do this. Like, what am I doing? So, and then that's the end of that section of, let's see, what are we on? Tuesday, the opening reception. Oh my God. Also, what is up with the no chapter numbers? Did that drive you nuts?
I saw that comment in Fable. People were like, oh, I had to sticky note him myself.
Yeah, it drove me crazy.
So I was reading through it and I didn't realize, because I started it on my Kindle, I didn't realize that there was no numbers until I started reading on it on the book. And then I also didn't realize that it was broken out by the days either until we built the timeline. I just kind of went with it. I was like, wait, did I miss the chapter change? And I was like, oh, no.
Yeah, it was, I mean, I guess if I was reading this like for leisure, it wouldn't have really mattered. But trying to keep up with Fable, trying to keep up with notes, going back to do references, like, I just don't understand there has to be some kind of like, I don't know, symbolic whatever about this. But like, why no chapter numbers?
Yeah. Well, I think I've read books before where it's been similar, where it's the book, this entire 450-page book is 1 week. So it's like they want you to be in that specific day, like take it one day at a time. So I don't know. I've read books similar style. I don't know if it means anything for this one, but maybe.
Interesting. Yeah, that was crazy.
Where it's like on the first day.
But anyways, so then the next day, basically Phoebe wakes up and it's like 3 a.m. and she's kind of like, oh crap, here I am. It didn't work. Like, I'm glad that I was able to throw these up and I'm not dead. So she was like, okay, what am I going to do now? She gets into her undies and she goes down to the hot tub at the hotel.
I love that.
Yeah. And she was kind of like, okay, I guess I'm here now. So she ends up meeting this like mysterious guy there. And I felt like this
Hello?
whole scene was so vivid. I could picture it perfectly. Like, you know, when you,
I
and
know,
she
me
even
too.
said, it's like when you get into the hot tub and some guy's already in there and you're kind of like, oh,
Yeah.
like I want it to be alone. Like, who's
You're
this
so
freaking
lonely.
guy?
I like this.
And they end up just like chatting about life and depression. And she tells him that she was going to kill herself. And like she's attracted to him and she's feeling kind of cute. And it was like this really interesting, sweet.
This is like the first time I felt like I saw her personality come through. Besides her, I feel like when she was talking to Lila, she kept thinking of like, I could say this now. Like now I could say this. And like I've really been thinking of this. And now I feel like I can actually empowered to say this. I feel like I actually saw her personality when she was talking to the mystery man in the hot tub come through. And I was like, oh my God, she's kind of funny.
No, I was literally thinking that too. It's like they both had a really good banter. Like I felt like I really liked the way that they were interacting with each other. And yeah, she was just like a cute little girl, you know, who just wanted to joke and flirt with some guy after she had been divorced and like so sad. And it was like, even that was a sign to her. I feel like that was when she very first started being like, maybe I can just say what I feel and what I want. Because in the past, she never did that.
And it was like kind of like, I don't know, the romance novels that I read where it's like she's giddy now, like, and she's like, oh my God, this guy's fly. Like now there's like thoughts of like, oh, he's cute, he might like me, I like him, like what are we gonna do about this? Like just girl and guy in hot tub versus like the dread that she felt like literally right before this when she tried to kill herself. But yeah, I thought it was sweet to see that side of her. It made me connect with her more, being like, oh my God, she's just like us.
Yeah, I love that. And even though she's like in her 40s, it's like we're all just like girls, you know? It's like it goes back to the mom thing where it's like we've all just wanted to be in that headspace where it's like, I'm in a hot tub with a cute guy. Like here we are flirting, you know? And I thought that was an endearing scene. And one quote that I liked is, this is the gift that random strangers can give to you. Phoebe is realizing the freedom to say or be anything around them. And this reminded me so much of how like coworker friendships are, because anytime I've had close coworkers, it's like you can literally tell them anything you want because they don't know any of your friends. They don't know your life. It's like when you, or even when you are on like a long plane ride with a stranger or something, like sitting next to another girlie that you're bonding with. I just love that feeling.
I love the feeling of like getting to reinvent yourself. Like I feel like I like who I am right now up until these 29 years of life. So when coming to London, I was like, I could just be a whole new me. But I'm like, I actually kind of like who I am. So I'm just going to keep doing my thing. But like when you get to college, from high school to college, and you can just be someone, especially when you don't have anybody that freaking follows you to school, like it's nice to just be like, this is me and I love hot pink and I love everything hot pink and this is what I do. And like that was me. I'm like, I love hot pink and I have a hot pink backpack and a hot pink headband. And now I'm like, what the heck? But you get to be who you want to be when you get to start over. And I feel like this was her starting over. And you got to kind of see that when she was like, I'm going to flirt with this boy.
Yeah, because she was just so used to like doing things that she thought she was supposed to and pretending over and over and over. And finally she's like, you know what? And she stands up and she goes, I would like to foof you. And he's like, oh, wow. And she's like, I said that out loud. Like, you know, and then he's kind of like, oh,
so what do you
okay,
think?
well, I'm actually, and she's like, oh yeah, you're with someone, I'm sorry. And then she like kind of reverts back to herself because she's like embarrassed now.
Yeah. But I feel like it was a big step for her. Like I was so proud of her when she said that. I was not expecting that.
I was not expecting that. Garrett, or well, I mean, Hot Tub Man was not expecting that. Everybody was not expecting that. We're like, okay, go girl. She was like, it was giving Sabrina Carpenter. She was like, I'm horny.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that scene. But it was also, I don't know. I think that from the beginning to literally the next chapter, which kind of felt like it was a day, but I feel like she just changed so much, and I can actually like in my head like see that, like see her stand up straighter. And before, when they described her relationship with her husband, it was like I had to think before I spoke because he was so smart. And it's like she's not only a professor, like she could be like, yeah, like a Mr. Girl in the hot tub. So anyway, I loved that part.
Yeah, I did too. And it's kind of cool. It like goes into when she comes back from the hot tub and now it's like the next day because that was like late into the night kind of thing, Lila comes to find her and lets her know that she booked out the room for the whole week. And Phoebe's like, well, I don't want to be here. Like, what do you mean? I don't want to be here. And she's like, well, some other random is going to book it. And like, you're the only random person that I accept to be here. And she was kind of like, well, I mean, I was supposed to be dead right now. So like, what do I have to lose?
I guess I have nothing else to do.
Yeah. She's like, I have nothing else to do. Like, I guess I'm in this wedding. And it was kind of like she had been so trapped in the monotony and like the structure of her life that now she finally, because she came there to just die and then the next day she wasn't dead, she was like, okay, I mean, I guess now like I can come on your boat day and like do all this stuff.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting. Like, I think there's like certain phrasing that I should have probably taken instead of Lila saying like, I booked out the room for you because I don't want anyone else, but not because like, hi, happy that you didn't die. Like, I knew you wouldn't do it. I think that's what she said. Like, I knew you wouldn't do it. And like nothing else. I'm like, girl.
That is crazy.
Yeah, but I felt like it was a bit, I don't know, selfish of Lila to be like, well, I don't want anyone else in here. I don't want you, but I also don't want anyone else. And I think it kind of showed like, obviously, her personality in general was like, one moment she was really caring and like wanting to help her, but it never felt selfless.
Yeah. Yeah, Lila was an interesting character because I really never disliked her, even though logically I was like, she literally sucks. Like, who comes into somebody's room after they were going to die and then she goes, I knew you wouldn't do it. Like, oh, hello? That is crazy. But I never, I think I just felt bad for her kind of the whole time because you could tell she just wasn't happy. Yeah. And she had like a bad circle of people around her. So I felt like,
oh my God, her friendships again. And
friendships again and nothing because they sucked.
Yeah,
Nat and Suze.
It was symbolic. Yeah, one of the questions that we got was, what did we think about Lila's friendships with different characters throughout? And I felt like it was kind of with Phoebe, she was herself. With her other friends, they gave as much as they received. I feel like that's what I kind of saw play throughout the book, where it was like in the beginning, obviously they're like so excited and yes, party, wedding, bridesmaids, but they didn't really know a ton about each other after school, where she was like, well, I probably could have reached out about this, or you never reached out about that. There was like resentment there. I feel like Lila's that type of person where it's like, I'll think about you right here and now because you're here. And same thing with Phoebe, like I'm thinking about you right here and now because you're helping me with food in my teeth, but it wasn't like deeper than that.
Mm-hmm. And
like, I don't think they're gonna be long life best friends.
Yeah. And it was also like the girls, even though it's like, okay, you're here together now, you haven't seen each other in a while, they didn't want to move past the surface level. Whereas I feel like if they came and did say genuinely like, Lila, what do you need help with? How are you feeling? Like she would have been more open, because obviously Lila was able to open up to Phoebe. Granted, that goes back to the helpfulness of a stranger, is like you can be whoever you want and say whatever you want. But the friends didn't even provide her that opportunity to be honest. Like they just never.
Like the food in your teeth. I think that's when she's like, oh my God, I've been walking around with food in my teeth all day.
That was so sad. I felt so bad for her.
I know, that was pretty sad.
Yeah.
I mean,
but then all these girls hop into this car and drive to the boat dock, which was hilarious. Yep. That scene was weird. First of all, Marla, literally the worst. The groom's
I know,
brother.
but I kind of did like her.
I hated her.
And Walt told the comments be like, of course you would like Marla.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I felt like, I don't know what it was. I disagree with her actions, and the backstory with Marla was that she was the groom's sister and aunt to their daughter, Juice, Melanie, whatever. But she was like having an affair, and like with her, not with her husband, with a judge or whatever. And everybody was judging her for it. But I don't know. I felt like there was moments where the author wrote like, and her face or her like grin dropped, like her frown, she was frowning, and like I don't know, I feel like she just kind of hated herself a little bit, but was trying to get through it. So I felt for her. I don't know that I loved her, but like I don't hate Marla.
I mean, like I don't hate, I guess, but I just she's definitely the type of person who's miserable to be around because she's miserable in her own life.
Exactly.
Like, and it's like, is that an excuse? No, but does it explain why she's like that? Yeah. So it's like you got to feel kind of bad for her, you know? But she's driving and she's trying to show Phoebe the maps and she keeps getting dirty texts from her husband.
Yeah. See, I thought she was getting dirty texts from the guy that she had an affair with.
Me too.
Okay. They didn't explain that.
I was confused about that.
Yeah.
But then, they're like, oh, my therapist needs me to dirty text my husband or whatever. That was funny.
Yeah.
But then this is when they figure out.
So embarrassed when we get there.
Yeah, and then she wasn't even.
I know. She was like, oh, my registration.
Freaking Marla. She's so annoying.
She's the worst.
But this is when Phoebe finds out that the guy from the hot tub is Gary. Crazy.
So I texted Nikki and I was like, oh my God, do we think it's Gary? And she's like, oh my God, is it? I thought you had already read that part.
No, yeah. Well, because I also, at first you said, oh, do we think it's Gary? And I was like, yeah, it's got to be Gary. And then you were like, it is Gary. And I was like, well, I'm not there yet, but.
Oh, well, there you go. Sorry about that.
But I mean, I felt like it was kind of obvious, you know?
Yeah.
But one of the quotes that they talked about in relating to the hot tub kind of goes along with the strangers thing. But she said, but maybe that's the trick night performs. Darkens everybody, highlights the nothingness around them. Maybe in the dark, everyone seems more alone than they are. And it's so true. Like, you know, when you're like up really late at a sleepover and you can just spill your whole secret and your whole life, like nighttime is the best time to bond. And so I feel like her and Gary really bonded in the hot tub because they were like, ooh, this is this random stranger in the dark. We can just say whatever we want.
I know. I feel like it just has an effect on you where it's like, it's dark. Like, I agree where I feel like it's been with you too. Like, we stay up late and we're like talking about literally nothing. But then also we're like, oh my God, and then remember. And then we cry. And then we're like so upset. And then we're happy. And then we're excited. And it's like, you can literally be who you want to be, but like be so transparent because it's nighttime and then you go to sleep and then it's 8 hours pass and then you're like act like nothing happens. I feel like that again happens in the book later when Lila and her have a moment in the room where it's like she wakes up and then it's like, oh, I guess this isn't it.
I guess we're getting married still. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. That reminded me a lot of the hot tub scene too, is when she was like, I can't marry him. And then it's like, oh, nothing's wrong the next day.
Yeah. She's like, so you're marrying him? She's like, yeah, of course. Why wouldn't I?
Yeah. I know. That's so weird. But yeah, the whole boat situation was really weird. Like Juice's virtual dog dies. And so nobody really cares about it.
Do you feel like there was a lot of fluff throughout the entire book that maybe meant something that we didn't understand? Because like the whole vacations in a cup, like that lasted so long for no reason. Like, did I miss something?
I don't know. I think it was just highlighting, like, to me, that was poor character development for Marla, because I was like, you're literally like, who cares if it's vacations in a cup or vacation in the cups? Like, that's so stupid. But it kind of showed to me that she didn't, that was like such a petty thing that she was doing it just specifically to be against Lila and her friends. So it kind of showed she doesn't actually care what she's talking about. She's just so miserable that she's like,
yeah, that's true. That's true.
But
okay.
But yeah, there was a lot of like
taking
random,
too long.
like foof in the car.
What?
The foofing of the car when they were like,
car. Yeah, that was so weird, you guys. Did you also think that it was so strange how like there had to be some indecent action taking place in her car for no reason?
There was no reason for that, and no.
Here's what I will say. This is what I think the comments will say. It showed that Gary like always took care of things for Lila, where she was like so upset, and then he turns to Jim. He's like, "Why did you have to tell her? Like, she didn't need to know." And he's like protecting her, which is like the role that he put himself in after her dad died. And like, obviously, Gary. Did we say this already? Gary was the doctor that helped with Lila, and her dad when he had colon cancer. He's like a gastroenterologist doctor. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's what it was for, but no reason. Like, but you could have done it another way.
The tire popped or something. You know what I mean? It was like so random.
Or I was like, somebody egged the car. I don't know. I'm like 12 years old.
Well, I guess at the end they needed to not have the vintage car available because she needed the wrong car. That was like the whole turning point of the story.
They could have done something else.
Yeah, it was really odd.
That was like so weird. Like, should I look up the symbolism behind that?
I know, seriously. I'm like, Also, when they were like, logically, how does this work? Because how big is the exhaust pipe versus how big is the...
Yeah, I'm like...
Yep. I'm like, I never really thought about this, but... Now I'm like going to be
And we're
studying
moving
the
on.
size of exhaust pipes. I'm like, what is it? How big are these?
I literally was trying to picture, like, I don't even know that much about vintage cars, but anyway.
Nasty. But I did actually like the scene when Juice's dog died because I thought it was
Oh my
really
God.
sweet. Well, first of all, literally, I was like, I'm going to cry.
Oh,
When
me
Phoebe
too.
was-
Me too.
Oh my God. Me and Mariana were texting and I was like, when Jorah dies, like, I'm out, you know? Like,
And I was like, when all 4 of my dogs die, I'm out. I'm coming back, and then I'm out. And then I'm coming back, and then I'm out.
yeah. But it was really sweet how I just really liked Phoebe's character a lot because she was so naturally maternal, even though she went through all those rounds of IVF, she miscarried, she had all this situation. Like she was truly, and because she was a professor, she learned how to be like a caregiver in a way with her students and stuff. And everybody else was like, Juice, that's a virtual dog. Like, don't be silly. And she was really there with her. And like, I just thought it was like a sweet little bonding moment and like a good character building moment.
I thought it was so sweet, and I agree with you that there was a lot of points throughout the book where like she showed her maternal side, and I think that when teachers and professors keep this world like the place that it is, because obviously they're teaching our youth, but also like you have to have so much empathy and care and like love when you're helping, especially like little kids. Like I'm thinking of like Juice's age. Also, what age was that girl? Because she kept cursing and then she got drunk. So
12, I think they said.
But I felt like she referenced a lot of the conversations that she would have with her students, or like, and then my students would come to me for this, and then this is when I would do this, and I'm like, she doesn't give herself enough credit for helping people. Like the college professors that I had, like maybe if I would have gone to them, they would have helped me, but like it's such an important time in your life, and she doesn't give herself enough credit for that, where she's just like, I couldn't have a baby, and that's where it ended for her. But there's like so much more to that part too.
Well, yeah, it was like you could tell that she was really had an impact on other people's lives, but didn't really realize it in that way. But yeah, the whole scene, there was also this quote, literally made me so sad, when she was saying goodbye in her head to Harry the cat. She said, "Thank you for keeping us company." And I was like, that is the perfect way to describe pets, because we get them for selfish reasons. Like we get a little pet. Animals are supposed to be wild. We don't need pets in our home, little animals running around. But we get them because we want a little friend. And they just keep us company. I'm going to cry right now. Oh, I love my cat so much.
No, I agree. And it's like, when you're older, like, I'm like gonna cry. I'm like, when you're older, I wish every old man can have a dog that would keep him company, and they could take him to the little park, and then they could have so much fun, and they could love them so much.
When I see an old person with an animal, it's game over.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I already said my parents have 4 dogs. So, and 2 of them are like 7 years old, and 2 of them are 1. So, anyway, I don't want to talk about it.
Sweet little babies, little Sophie. Okay, so now they kind of split up. They're back at the hotel. Phoebe goes to her hotel room, and the guy comes in. He's like, "Do you want turn down service?" And she's like, "What?" That was funny. But it was.
She's like, and then I just watched them make my bed, and she's like, "Turn down service," like a light bulb in her head. Wow, this is like a nighttime ritual. Like I need to start doing this every night.
She needs a bedtime routine. But it is interesting. She talked about like the night being hard, and I saw this in the Fable group chat that somebody spoke about this as well, but it said the night is hard, usually the worst time of day for Phoebe, when the depression surfaces like a cyst. And this is funny because this was one of those things where I thought about it. I was trying to analyze it as if we were in, like AP Lit class. And I was like, a cyst is a really specific word choice to use because those are recurring and they come back. Where it's like you're afraid, like instead of a pimple that comes and goes, a cyst comes back in the same spot. And if you ever have had like depression or anxiety, it's like you always know it's there and underlying and you're afraid of it surfacing again. Mm-hmm. And so it's like every night she feels like, oh God, here we go again kind of thing. It's like she gets reprieve from her depression in the day, but then at night it's like, I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
That was my analysis.
Yeah. Well, again, I think it goes back to like at the night, it's when you're kind of like metaphorically like naked and vulnerable. Like that's kind of maybe what that might feel like to her as well, where it's like, and now I'm alone again. And it's like, like, this is actually happening. I'm at this hotel of this random person and all this stuff. I obviously I can't relate to the depression portion, and I have no experience with that. But like the sadness that you feel when, let's say, you have a death in the family, and or you have like a really hard breakup. But like for me, I'm like thinking of like there's been a death and you escape it for a moment, but then at night everybody goes home and everybody goes to their own place and you have to go home and like deal with those feelings. I feel like it's kind of that again where like you physically feel it kind of like sucking you down or ooh. Like, you know, like it's like pulling you back in again to like the dark place, and you kind of get stuck in that cycle for however long it takes for you to heal. But usually it's a pretty long time, and I'm sure with depression it's something that doesn't go away. And it's kind of like, yeah, that dread of like, oh, and then it's gonna be nighttime and I'm gonna have to go in my bed and think about this all night long and be sad and be upset. So yeah, I noticed the word usage as well. So interesting.
Yeah, that was interesting for sure. Interesting, princess. So then it's like, okay, so all of the distractions of the day are gone. She's sitting there and thinking about all these things. She decides to take a bath because she asked the guy, she's like, okay, let me take care of what I actually need. I'm going to tell this guy I need a stopper for my bath. So she gets in the bath. Lila comes into her room with a key. First of all, what are you doing? Second of all,
I forgot about that.
Phoebe is butt naked in this bathtub. And Lila goes, well, Phoebe's like, what are you doing? I'm taking a bath. And she goes, oh, I don't mind. It's like, Lila, Phoebe's like, I literally mind.
I mind.
I'm butt naked. Yeah. So she's just sitting there and like talking to her about how she can't trust anyone because she didn't like the girls didn't tell her about the food in her teeth and all this stuff. And she asks Phoebe to be her maid of honor because now her maid of honor didn't show up. It was like this whole chaotic, crazy scene. And this is where I really started to feel bad for Lila because she said, everyone in my life is always telling me I can be anyone I want. But then whenever I do one thing they don't like, they act like I've ruined myself. So it's kind of like that act of when people are like, yeah, this is your life, you do you. But then when you do what you want that's like, unpopular, they're like, oh, do what you want, but not like that. You know? Yeah.
Do it like this or do that. Do anything you want in life is possible except for probably that. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And it's like, let the girl just
let them
do it.
Let them
theory. So this crazy girl comes in and didn't she wash her hair?
Okay, so I noticed a few things in this scene. Was one of them was, and again, didn't bring the quote with me, but Phoebe describes the bathtub, and then she describes that there's like a stool near her, and she's like, and Lila sits on it like it was meant for her, kind of like. I thought that was like an interesting image. I don't know if to take it like in a bad way or in a good way, but it's like she sat there like it was meant for her, like it had been waiting for her whole life for her to take a little seat there. So I thought that was interesting. And then the other thing was she literally washes her hair. She's like, I can't shower. Like, this isn't as sexy as it is in the books that I read or whatever. And she's like, oh, I'll help you. And she doesn't say anything. She just starts. She's like, and then she starts shower.
It's very girlhood.
And I know that this is when I thought, oh, maybe they will fall in love.
Yeah. I know. It was kind of like, that was a little bit romantic. But it also, I feel like, this goes back to the female friendships thing. It's like sometimes when you're BFFs with somebody, like you'll just do whatever, you know?
Yeah. Like friendships, it's like, again, yeah, for sure.
No, literally Mariana has waxed my nether regions before. So that's friendship. I feel like people needed to know that.
Yeah. I feel like they definitely did.
It's like on Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Also.
Yeah, literally. You're Chloe. Oh, no, you're Courtney.
Yeah, no, I think Chloe was being waxed and Courtney waxed her. And we're sisters like that, you and I.
Yeah, sisters.
Last thing I have to say on the end of this chapter that is unrelated, she's talking about her divorce and like her relationship ending. And this is so Taylor Swift coded. She said, how are you supposed to go from being the center of someone's world to being irrelevant? And it is literally Last Kiss by Taylor Swift. I'll watch your life in pictures like I used to watch you sleep. That is crazy.
No, that is crazy. Anyway. Or what is it? Like, don't
New Year's Day.
Don't be like a laugh I could never recognize, whatever. That one from New Year's Day.
Yep.
What is it
I was
called?
thinking the exact same thing. Please don't Ever become a stranger? Who's that?
Beautiful voice, sister.
Beautiful.
I'm sick, so it like maybe it's a little raspy for you guys.
Yeah.
A little Phoebe. A little Phoebe. Buffet.
Phoebe
from
Bridgers?
Friends. Buffet
Oh.
from Friends.
Oh, I don't know Friends.
She doesn't get the reference if anybody watches Friends. Anyway.
I'm not a Friendser.
Yeah, that was sad. But it is the feeling of like, it's crazy when you break up with someone, get a divorce, whatever. And you're like, oh, I liked you for so long. And now I literally don't even know what you're doing these days. That's crazy.
So that is the weirdest phenomenon, being like, I know everything about you, but then now if we saw each other on the street, we would like maybe chit chat for a minute. You know, it's
well, I think I've told Ben this before, where it's like, isn't it kind of crazy? And also like we were like this, like, isn't it kind of crazy that like I'm here and you're here and we were kind of like strangers for most of our lives and now we live in the same house? Like that's weird.
That is weird. I saw this meme on TikTok today that was like me when I realized that my boyfriend is actually a stranger who I just thought was hot. And so now we live together. And it's like, that is like a literal stranger in the other room that I actually am going to get married to. Like, huh?
Yeah, that's weird.
Like since what? Just because I thought he was cute or whatever. It's like, what?
Yeah.
That's literally a man.
No, Ben and I literally met one time and we were like, oh, I think this guy's like so funny and so cute. Okay, perfect. 2 years later.
Ben is like literally a man. Like, you ever think about that? Like, what?
Yeah. He's the best man.
Sweet man.
Sweet.
Well, now we're on to Thursday, bachelorette party. I think this is your turn to take it away.
Okay, so now we're going to jump into Thursday, and this is the day of the bachelorette. So as Nikki said, Phoebe has now been assigned the role of the maid of honor. So
which is crazy.
Huge privilege. Of course, they have known each other for so long, so this makes absolute sense. This is the day after the bath washing scene, but essentially Phoebe wakes up early this day. She decides to go on a walk, and I noticed that she said like she's not typically a walker. And Nikki, I mentioned this to you too. It's like they reference a lot of like Victorian novels, like Jane Eyre.
Yeah.
They talk about Wolf, and she always says like I'm not really like those characters. However, I'm going on a walk. A bunch of the characters in these books go on walks. Like, let's see what this does for me. But she doesn't still understand the underlying reason why they do that. However, I feel like this is a pretty pivotal point for her in the book because she walks out. She stumbles upon Gary and Lila taking sweet wedding photos. Like, she's like, why are people taking photos at 5:30 in the morning? The sun hasn't risen, and they look so awkward. Like, if you've ever walked in on someone taking a photo, she's probably like this, and like hand on chest, and then move the hair. So she's kind of feeling weird from seeing that, weird because she likes Gary, weird because Lila asked her to be the maid of honor, and she's like, I'm doing this thing now, like I'm fully committed. And she ends up walking toward a cliff, sees a dog, kind of follows the dog, and she stumbles upon a fisherman. I am missing a huge part of like the character piece for Phoebe here because I don't understand like the role that her dad played. Like, she talks here in the scene, like she references her dad a lot, but they never felt like she never felt like she connected with him. He kind of dismissed the parts of her that were like more feminine, like when she got her period, when she was like being a girl, it just kind of felt like that was being dismissed. And I don't understand the impact that had in her later in life. So maybe I missed something there. Do we feel like there was a lesson that was to be learned from like her dad in general? I don't know. So that was a little bit confusing for me. But she spends some time with the fisherman. She helps him catch a fish. She sends it back. She kind of going back to her trying to kill herself and now having like a new lease on life. She goes to leave. So she's with the fisherman for a while, chit-chatting, reminiscing about her dad. And then she's like, okay, I'm out of here. I pulled a quote where she is on the way back, but she slips and she kind of like stumbles to fall. And originally she said like, oh, this is kind of scary. Like, if anybody fell here, like they would probably die. I think the quote that I added here was, Phoebe made it out alive. She's back on the path. Nothing had destroyed Phoebe. She feels very aware of this as she continues walking. So it's kind of like the little things where in the past, maybe she's, I don't know, I'm thinking of like Grey's Anatomy, where it's like she would have fell and let herself fall and let herself die and let herself kind of tumble into the abyss. Here it's like she's really grateful that that didn't end up happening, because she really, again, reaffirms that she didn't want to kill herself. So I thought that was interesting. I feel like that stood out to me because she didn't really want to go to the hotel to kill herself. She just felt like all of these things were so heavy on her that was the only option. But now that she is kind of out of it a little bit, is seeing more to what life has to offer.
Yeah, I felt like in that situation, it's almost like after her attempt, she now is so much more aware of her own mortality in that way. Where it's like, normally it's like, oh, oops, I slipped and fell. Like, that was crazy. But now she's like, oh my gosh, like, I'm glad that it's like it said, she's very aware of this. Like, she's still there kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think that you'll see, I saw that a little bit more throughout the book, where even with the tarot and stuff, we'll get into it later, she's like, oh, I am alive.
Yeah.
Oh, I do want to live. And I feel like that was kind of something that stood out to me. After this, she's like walking back, and her husband, who I loathe, oh my goodness,
literally so annoying,
Matt, I hate him. I feel like also with the whole Matt situation, the book kind of goes back and forth, giving us a little bit of background into Phoebe and why she kind of got to where she is. And it paints like a very sad picture of like their divorce, where I kind of felt for Matt a little bit in the beginning. And then toward the end, where after she like kind of realizes all the things that she was kind of keeping to herself, or she wasn't fully being herself throughout the marriage, I like started to hate him. As she's going back home to the hotel, he's like texting her and calling her, and he's like worried. Before this, Bob had emailed her and was like, hey girl, where are you? Like, you literally just left work one day. And she emailed him back and was like, hey Bob, it's me, Phoebe, and I am okay, and I will be back, and I will let you know. Her husband keeps calling and texting her. He leaves her voicemails, and he tells her that her cat passed away, Harry. And she's like, no shit, Sherlock. Like, of course I know. I live with him.
Me nuts.
And I was so annoyed, and he kept leaving messages for her. My hot take here, not so hot. He needs to get lost. Stop worrying. You literally let her go. Goodbye, sir. That was in my notes.
And also, I kept forgetting that it had been 2 years since they had been separated, basically. It's like, dude, you're going to come in here and act, where are you? I care about you. It's like, you lost those privileges. You're not hers anymore.
No, Nikki.
Or she's not yours.
So one other thing that I saw being talked about was like, how did you feel about the book kind of taking place during COVID? Like, kind of during COVID and then a little bit after. I don't really ever like when I don't like when we're talking about COVID in books. It kind of feels funny to me just because it was so recent. But another book that I read that had COVID was Beautiful People, Where Are You? And I really liked that book. So I thought it was interesting. But yeah, this was like COVID happened, he left her, and then 2 years.
Yeah, it does kind of take me out of it in a way, which is weird though, because COVID, to me, it almost feels like when people talk about TikTok in books, it's like, why are you talking about this? It's weird. But if you think about it, like, not that it's historical fiction because it literally was a couple of years ago, but it's like that. Like, that was a big event that happened in history. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, I don't see why we couldn't talk about it.
How could you not? Yeah. That's very true. But I still think it's kind of interesting.
It is weird. It makes me feel weird whenever they mention it. Because it's such a recent thing that happened. And it also felt like a fever dream. So I'm like, oh.
No, I know.
Wow, we did really go through COVID.
I know. It was crazy. But I do think that the author painted a good picture of like kind of like how she got there throughout that time too, because it's like all of the drinking and all of the laying around, and it must be so hard to be a professor or like a teacher where it's like your entire summer is free and then like it flies by and you did literally not a single thing. Like I feel like that kind of made her spiral even more so. But she's checking her messages, and then Gary kind of walks up to her and is like, hey, Lila is looking for you. Realize that you are our maid of honor. Like, that's kind of crazy. But they have another one of their deep convos because, again, they are in love. She asks like about Juice. Juice is his daughter. Did you explain that? Melanie and wants to be called Juice. And she's like, why does she want to be called Juice? Like, why on earth? And apparently growing up, her mom was like, you have so much energy. We're going to call you Juice. And then she stopped being called Juice, came back to being called Juice once the mom died. That was the entire story. I still think it's so funny and kind of unnecessary to call her Juice, but whatever. She shares more about herself and her infertility and her ex-husband. And she's like, he's getting in contact with me and I kind of hate him. Then they go back to the hotel. That was like an end of one of the mini chapters. Apparently, as maid of honor, Phoebe is tasked with taking Juice to get open-toed shoes because she keeps wearing combat boots.
That was so funny.
Which I kind of started to like Juice after a while, but
I felt so bad for her.
I know, I feel so bad for her. Like, she's 12. She literally has no idea what's going on or what to do. But she ends up going shopping with her, trying on dresses, kind of being normal, which I appreciated that side of her too, where we talked about how she's like pretty maternal, but she treats her like a human being, which is all kind of teenagers want to be that. They just want to be one of you and like be cool. And I feel like that's what she was missing, where instead of babying her, she's like, why don't you like her? And she goes, well, Lila is a bitch. And then out of nowhere, and she's like, well, why do you say she's a bitch? She's kind of like, oh shit, I can't react.
That was so funny.
But I thought that was like a good bonding moment for them, on top of like obviously the boat and everything and Harry. But I think it showed the grief that Juice still has that she hasn't dealt with or hasn't expressed. And then she's like, and my combat boots are starting to smell. Like, I will get new shoes. And she got her like some Tevas or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I personally like that she kept being like, you should get a dog. And she's like, maybe I will get a dog. Maybe I'll take this dog home. I thought at the end of that they actually bought the dog.
Yeah, same.
And I was like, oh, where's she going to put it in the hotel?
No, for sure.
But I guess she didn't.
Well, I just like that Phoebe really talks to her as if she listens. Like, she listens to her. Whereas I think Juice just... Nobody is going to replace her mom. And I think she was so devastated over losing her mom. And she was so young that she has obviously a lot of trauma from that. And Lila has no idea how to deal with it, because I think she has her own issues. And so she kind of isn't. Yeah. And like, her and Gary aren't close enough in the way that she was like properly integrated. And I think that's also why Marla is so rude to Lila, because she's like, well, you're not being a good stepmom to Juice, and she's protective. Yeah. And it's like all these things. And nobody here is communicating properly. And if Lila had just taken the time to actually like truly try and get to know her and not shove her idea of fun on her, it's like, what does this girl want? You know, I think she would like her more.
And I also didn't like oh shoot, that's in the next chapter. But yeah, I think that I didn't like that. For a majority of it, it did seem like Lila wasn't talking about her mom, where it's like it is such a big thing for her. Why can't anyone talk about it? I didn't see it directly from Lila being like, oh, why don't talk about Wendy, but everyone felt like that, so it must have been true. I actually really liked Juice. I thought she was sweet. I felt like she at the end kind of had a little bit of a breakthrough with Phoebe.
Yeah, and I feel like Lila was probably struggling with the death of Gary's ex-wife, because she always kind of knew that she wasn't her, which of course in any situation where you're marrying someone who has had a spouse pass away, or like a girlfriend or whatever pass away, you're never going to replace that person. But it's like, it was not comparable and not as good for Gary. Like, that was his his true love. And Lila, like, we find out obviously later, like, they're not meant for each other. And I think she knows that. So it's probably really triggering to be like, why does everybody keep talking about this woman? Like, I'm not her. I'm not as good as her. So I feel like it was really triggering her in that way as well. So she's like, why are we talking about her?
But I understand that, but I also feel like it explains it, but it doesn't excuse it. Totally. It's kind of like still so disrespectful for her to be like, why is everyone talking about this? Oh, I'm sorry. Like,
it's like, that's a huge portion of your future husband's life. Like, you should respect and love her as well. It's like, this is the person who made him who he is as a father and as a husband and whatever, and like shaped his personality. So you have to honor that in some way. But yeah, I think she just
and I feel like she didn't.
Yeah, totally.
And so everybody resented her for that. Even Jim, like literally all of his side of him, Jim, Gary, Marla, like all of the important people in his life, and she still couldn't, because I think, like, again, the selflessness is not there.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and then this leads to just Phoebe going back to the hotel. Phoebe goes to return Lila's mom's clothes. They have a whole conversation. I feel like I didn't really take away maybe what I should have, but again, her mom is really weird toward Lila. Their relationship doesn't outright say that she shouldn't be with Gary, but talks bad about like how her relationship with her dad ended. So I kind of see why Lila feels so weird toward her. And then this is when we find out that it's a nude photo, right?
Oh, probably.
This is like when we find out that it was a nude photo of that Gary ended up buying, which I thought was also unnecessary.
That whole thing was so bizarre.
I thought it was so weird. But then anyway, they continue with their itinerary, and it includes cold plunge pools where they kind of all have to go naked. And Marla's like, I am not going naked with you guys. And they're like, why not?
Come on.
And then there is the sex woman,
the
tarot card
lady.
reading. And then Boom Boom Room. You added that.
Yeah, they went to the club, the club. Remember they drove over to the Boom Boom Room.
I forgot about that. Yeah. Oh yeah. So yeah, I think the biggest takeaway here was one, obviously Vivian, her like previous maid of honor, arranged the sex woman, and that was interesting. They talked about pandas, mating, and all that stuff, and then they were all sharing details about their sex life. However, Lila was like very reserved, and I kind of started to be like, oh my god, maybe she doesn't like what's his name like at all. That's kind of when I started to really piece it together. Yeah, but everyone was sharing their experiences, weird, fun, whatever. And she didn't want to, I think, blaming it on the fact that Marla was there. But I was like, it's for sure something so much more. But they had that experience, which was fun. And then the biggest thing was the tarot card, which for Lila, we find out that she's like, oh, she got it all wrong. And I'm very curious what she told her. I forget what she said. I don't think she said much, but she's like, she said, I'm going to do this.
I want to go back and look at that actually, now that I think about it. Like because they obviously told all the girls different things, but what was it that they said about Lila?
I think she said like, oh, she was so wrong about me. I don't know what it was, but for Phoebe, oh, you could talk about it because I know you have a whole thing on here.
Well, yeah. So first of all, I love when tarot cards come up in books and stuff because my mom and I used to, and even still, like read tarot cards a lot, just as a thing we do. And so I kind of know a little bit about the cards. But anyways, in the reading, the Hermit card kept coming up, which the lady was saying that this is what represents Phoebe, and it kept coming up in the reading. And she said, you were so present in this reading. It's like the cards are telling me that no matter what happens, you are here. And so it was another, again, like callback confirmation to she didn't die. She's here. This is where she's supposed to be. And like she did the right thing by living. And Phoebe in this moment is really just learning how to be present and be here. So I felt like that was cool confirmation from her. And
I thought that was really impactful. I think they said like Phoebe was like emotional during that too.
Because it was like extra outside confirmation from the stars, of that she's supposed to be here.
Where it's like this lady doesn't know that she like needed to hear this. And it's always like, when you really need to hear something. And I feel like this is what she needed to reaffirm that again.
Yeah. And when they get to the Boom Boom Room and they're partying and dancing, it's like this whole bachelorette night is when Phoebe and Lila's relationship really starts showing, and just how much they need each other in that moment and are really the only true friends in this group, because like Nat and Sue's, like they don't really, it's like they haven't cultivated that friendship on a deeper level. And Phoebe and Lila literally just met, but they're already more honest with each other than with anyone.
Yeah.
And
it's sweet.
So like they're at the party and Lila's pulling Phoebe out onto the dance floor, and it says, and so Phoebe joins. Phoebe has no other option left but to join. She tried to opt out, tried to sit on the sidelines, tried to leave this world, but she is still here. And it's like, friends, even Lila, when she didn't know her, she's like, you're literally not going to kill yourself. And Phoebe's like, I am. And she's like, you're literally not. And it's like she tried to get out of it, but Lila's like, nope, sorry. You're part of this wedding now. You're my maid of honor.
I knew you couldn't do it.
And I knew you couldn't do it. And it's like, it goes more into the friendships. It's like when you're in a rut, your friends will be there to be like, this is not happening right now. They'll give you tough love when necessary, kind of thing.
Yeah, totally. And I feel like you always need friends to, like, when you're not strong enough to kind of be that strength for you. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's what inadvertently, like, Lila was doing for her. She's like, no, you're not doing this. And she's like, okay, I am. And she's like, no, you're literally not doing this. Mm-hmm. And I think it really shows the difference between the people that were actually meant to be at the wedding as her friends and Phoebe, who was like a complete stranger, because they seem so disconnected. And also the author kind of points a lot to like their friendship in college, which is like literally not who they are anymore. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what they hold on to. And I think toward the end of this, Nat, her friend, has a kind of meltdown and is like, you don't even know who you are. And then that's when Lila says, I don't know who I am. And then they start laughing because it's like, okay, that's a little bit of like the real you, not the you that kind of you've been pretending to be this perfect little girl. And I feel like they kind of resent her for it.
Mm-hmm. But it's like they're all so different. And they don't follow up with each other. They've lived their lives so separately. Because it was even since they've known each other even since high school, I think, too, right?
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah, it was kind of confusing because I think they lived in like maybe a boarding school or something because they were talking about being in rooms, but then also being in high school. Or maybe they just knew each other since high school. But
oh, I thought it was like because they were talking about the dorm rooms, right?
Yeah, I was confused about that. But either way, it's like even from college until you're in your late 20s, you're very different. And so if you're not keeping up with people, like things change.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was very interesting.
I know. But it made me kind of sad for her. She's like, oh, literally this stranger is like more of her friend than these other girls.
Yeah. Well, and then when they get back to the hotel, Lila and Phoebe start talking and about their weird fantasies and stuff because she obviously wasn't comfortable enough sharing it in front of everyone. But then she shares her fantasies about Jim. And she's like, oh, I'm into Jim, actually, which is crazy.
And I was like, no, break away.
Me too. I was like, oh, I was not seeing that coming at all.
Yeah. I forget, was it Jim or was it her that talked about her crying to Jim? I think it was Jim. That was later.
When was she crying to Jim?
When her dad died.
Oh, yeah. Because he was telling Phoebe about that, I think, when she was coming in and out of the gallery with the Starbucks or whatever. But yeah, it was sad because that's when they first really talked about, or when they pretty much only really talked about how she didn't want to marry Gary, and Phoebe kind of had to pull it out of her, and she was like, you know what? I actually don't want to marry Gary. Like, this is crazy. And she's like, I don't want to marry him, but I also don't want to be alone. And Phoebe said, you can be married and be very alone, more alone than when you're, alone. It's like being alone is better than being with somebody that makes you feel alone.
Yeah. Which I feel like, I don't know Lila like that, but I don't think she could ever understand that though. Because of just like who she is and how she was brought up. And like she's doing this whole thing just to not feel alone because she still thinks she should be with Gary. Mm-hmm. I feel like some people can understand that and some people can. I don't know that she could have until the very, very, very end. Mm-hmm. That's why she didn't end up calling the wedding off when she said she would.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was interesting that she kind of ended up being the catalyst for it and not Gary. Because I think he was such a, like he felt so much guilt for a lot of things. So he was never going to be the one to call it off.
Well, at the end, he says like, I would have taken it as a sign if you would have called me after Matt showed up.
Yeah.
And I'm like...
But even still, like, I don't think you would have. I don't think you would have went through with
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
That's why I'm well, anyway, we're jumping. We're jumping here. Then after they have like their deep combo, Lila ends up sleeping in Phoebe's room. And then
she's so drunk.
Phoebe, she's like, you literally snore so loud. Like, I'm going to go sleep in your room. So they like swap rooms. And Gary comes up to Lila's room where Phoebe is sleeping. And he's like, oh, shoot, I was looking for Lila. They have like a deep conversation. Mm-hmm. They like hold hands.
Yeah,
like,
that was
she's
intimate.
Kind of like, I should really be. She's like, I don't know if I should tell him that Lila wants to call the wedding off. Like, I probably shouldn't. Like, my loyalty is to Lila now. Which I felt like was a good move on her end because you just met this guy. Obviously, you just met this girl too. But like, not girl code, but like kind of girl code. Like, she is so confused and like she's young. She doesn't know what the heck she's doing. And Gary is an old man with a gray beard. So she they kind of have like some moment, as they do when they're alone together, which is, I feel like, the only time we ever see Gary's personality, literally ever, like in the entire book, which is crazy because it's the same thing that I was saying when she was in the hot tub with him. I'm like, it's sweet because it's like she's just a girl and he's just a boy, and they kind of like each other, but obviously he's engaged, and it's like it makes you more endeared toward them and their situation, which isn't like a whole thing. Like, they're not having an affair. At least she didn't do any of that. It's kind of like
crazy because it's like micro cheating. You know, it's like, is what they're doing considered cheating? That's like an interesting question.
Yeah,
you know, because it's like it's like emotional cheating in a certain way, but kind of not. Like, they're not having even like a relationship or talking about it really
until the haircut. But yeah, you had some thoughts in here too.
Yeah, this was really interesting because this is where we learned a little bit more of the details about the naked mom painting. So it was like neither of them cared about the painting. So Lila just wanted to get rid of it because she was embarrassed about it because her mom had this naked painting, and she was like, well, screw you, Mom. I'm just going to sell it and get rid of it for free. Like, we don't even want this here, because she was embarrassed. And then Gary never wanted the painting in the first place. He just felt like he felt obligated to take it once Lila was like, oh, are you interested? It'll look great in your bathroom. And he was like, okay. And it kind of just signals how they both fell into this relationship for the wrong reasons. And they started the relationship, neither of them being honest about it. So it was like the communication was already screwed from the beginning because neither of them cared about this painting, but they both thought the other one cared about the painting. You know what I mean? It was just like the worst way to start a relationship. And I just thought that was like a really interesting anecdote.
Yeah. Well, it goes to like the boat. They talk about it a little bit in the boat, and then like kind of throughout, whenever Gary and Lila are together, like the picture that they painted was like, obviously, like, your boyfriend and girlfriend, you're staring at each other, but when you're kind of doing it for the show, you're like outwardly facing. So they would always like kiss and then outwardly face, kiss and then outwardly face, or like do something and then do it for the people kind of thing, where that's kind of who she is. Like, she's going through with the wedding for others, like not for herself, and he's just there because he's like, I'll do it for Lila. Yeah. And it just isn't, it kind of shows that they both were doing it for each other, but also never really for themselves. And I feel like it was, I don't know, I feel bad because it's kind of one of those things where it's like, well, I do love you and I'll stay here for you, but can you also stay here for yourself? Like, I guess not.
Yeah. I know. It's like we were starting to get little pieces of why this was never going to work, basically.
Yeah.
And sad. I can't remember what specifically this was related to, but Gary said, how much work we'll do just to feel something. I don't think there is anything more human than that. And I feel like that just speaks to humanity in general. I liked that quote because it's like, that's really all people want, is just to feel something out of life. And we'll do what we need to get it. So.
Yeah. But I feel like the only time they maybe not, but like the only time they talked about Phoebe feeling something for most of the time in the book was when she was talking to Gary. And it was like, she felt like this. And he is same thing with him, where it's like everything was pretty much calm, collected guy. But then he was with Phoebe. She talked about like her heart like speeding. Can he feel my heart? And then holding his hand, like electric. Like there was a lot of like those words used when they were together, but not throughout her interactions with other people. I felt. Yeah. I noticed that.
Yeah. Crazy. Mm-hmm. Well, that was Thursday.
That's Thursday. Do you want to do Friday?
You can keep going if you want.
Okay, perfect. Phoebe goes surfing with Juice and Gary. Here's how they get there. The night before, of course, Lila is saying she wants to call off the wedding. She doesn't want to marry him. So then Phoebe wakes up the next day and is like, hey, girl, are we calling off the wedding or not? And she's like, wait, did you clean my room? Yeah. she's like, yeah, I did. And she's like, oh, they don't talk about calling off the wedding. And she's like, so you're getting married? And she's like, of course I'm getting married. But I thought this went to show more about Lila and Juice again, because you said how she was never really like committed to integrating into Juice's world. Juice's Louise. She didn't even feel bad that she was like, oh yeah, I committed to this months ago. Like I was never gonna go.
Yeah.
I'm like,
and she said it was like, well, why'd you plan this? And she was like, oh, it was the one thing Juice wanted. And it's like, this is the one thing she asked for and you never even intended to go.
Not
like, that's going to be your future daughter.
Yeah, I thought that was really sad, actually.
Yeah.
But they end up, she's like, you should go. And so Phoebe's like, okay, I'll go play family with literally your husband and your daughter. Like, okay, whatever. But I felt like this was like a really special day for her because she was like, and I got to play family. And then she was like dreading the feeling of going home. You know, when you're having like such a good day with someone and like you really like them and you're like, oh my God, I want this to never end. I felt like that's where Phoebe was on Friday for like the blending of the families, which is, I thought was interesting because she got to be with his family. Like at no point did Lila try to blend herself into Juice and Gary and just try that. I thought it was fun. The surfing scene was sweet and her cheering. And she's like, I've never laughed this hard. I've never been as silly. And like, I've had this feeling before. I think maybe I've told you or my sister where it's like when you reach a certain age, you like, this is so dumb. You guys, just be prepared. You don't fall anymore. You're like more careful. You're like not as fearless.
That is so
and I
true,
thought it was
actually.
so crazy. Sometimes I'll like trip and fall and I'm like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Like, of course.
That's actually crazy though.
Because
I totally know what you mean.
And it's the same thing with her where it's like she was on the surfboard and then she fell over and she's like, I haven't felt this feeling in a while.
Yeah.
And
that's
I feel like I know exactly that feeling that she's talking about of you kind of start being careful and obviously like being careful for careful sake, but you stop being fearless as you get older. And maybe she lost more of that of herself than she realized.
Well, and that was one of the things too, the quote, it was like this whole entire scene of the surfing calls back to just the joy that she would have missed out on if she went through with it. And I feel like this is a lot of things that people say on social media and stuff. So the quote is, you do things in the moment for the person you hope you might be 2 years from now. You don't kill yourself when you're sad because one day you might not be sad and you might want to go surfing with a man you really like. And I've always seen people on TikTok and stuff saying like, well, you can't go through with it because what about the concert that you have in 2 weeks? Or you can't go through with it because what about the delicious like bagel that you're going to eat tomorrow morning? It's like there's always some little thing to look forward to. And it's like, and you do things not for yourself today. It's like in 2 years, maybe you want to go surfing with a cute boy. You know, it's like, so I thought that was sweet. It kind of was like she was reflecting on that and being like, this is what I was supposed to be here for.
Yeah.
And even still, like with the falling, there was a way that they were kind of it was like a metaphor for depression. It said each time she falls, she's overwhelmed by the white foam, the sand in her ears, but she emerges. So it's like, it's scary. And when you're down there, it's like, oh my God, but then you always pop out of it. So it's like, there's always a way out of it kind of thing. So.
No, I agree. The sand in the ears part, like, I don't know if you've ever fallen while surfing. Like, you kind of like, it feels like all of your senses are gone for like a hot second.
I've never been surfing. I'm kind of scared.
I also got like a mini concussion when I went surfing once. But I feel like it's that feeling, we kind of talked about this, but like when you get an overwhelming sense of emotion for this, maybe it's like happiness and like her being like happy that she's back and didn't kill herself. But even when you're angry and like you see red, like you stop hearing, like you stop, you like all of your senses are like numbed. So I feel like that is also maybe reflected in that for like a second where she's like doesn't feel anything, but then she's back and she's like, wait, I kind of love that reemerging again. Like maybe like being born. I don't know.
Wow. And it was kind of cute. Like it was bittersweet because she had this amazing day. Like you said, she was like playing house and playing family with them. And when they're going back, she was like, Phoebe realizes the one problem with falling in love with strangers is you don't get to keep them. And it's kind of like she was snapped out of that little fantasy. And it's like, have you ever been on vacation and like had a little love? Or like
a sweet crush?
Yeah, like have you ever fallen in love with a stranger? Like, you know how we all have that one where it's like, oh, this one time when I was 14, I fell in love with the boy at the lake kind of thing.
No, I am such a crusher. Like I used to get crushes on everybody, like everyone and their mother. Honestly, like same. I am just so easily being like, oh my God, and maybe it's the romance reader in me, but I'm like, oh my God, like, this is it, of course. Which is crazy because it's like in my mind, when I started liking Ben, I'm like, oh my God. And then now I'm here in London with him upstairs. Like, that's crazy. But yeah, it's like you on vacation, you fall in love, and then it turns into a sweet, sweet man upstairs.
That is so funny. Yeah, I was always the same. Like anytime we would go on little family vacations, I was like, oh, I'm gonna fall in love with a boy here, and I never did.
However, I was always waiting for Edward Cullen to come and save me. But like, yeah,
yeah. I just thought that was funny. Anyways,
no, and it's so funny because like when you're 15 or whatever, you're like, oh my God, like this cute boy,
and you're
and
like,
then
that's gonna be
you
my
leave and you never
husband.
see him again in your whole entire life.
Oh yeah. And you think that you're gonna be BFFs on Facebook or whatever, and then
Yeah,
you just never see them again.
Sad. It's okay.
Crazy.
But it's special.
It is special. Well, but then they go back, and then now it's Jim and Phoebe trying to get a high and write their speeches. I loved this scene. I thought that was so funny. When she's like, 2
Jim.
weeds, please.
And it's like an ongoing joke for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's like, should we write our speeches together? And she's like, sure, why not? And he has edibles in his room. They go upstairs and they have a whole deep conversation
About his sister, which is
about
Gary's dead ex-wife.
Yeah. And how he confesses to Phoebe how he's like, I've always taken care of Gary. Gary has always taken care of me since Wendy passed away.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never seen him be himself like he was with Wendy until the day on the boat.
Yeah.
So I know. And I was like, oh my God, of course.
And he said he talks to you the same way he talked to my sister.
I know.
Hey. Isn't that sweet? Sorry, I had to yell at the cat. He was great.
She wasn't doing anything.
Hey, go to bed. Anyways, that was really sad and sweet. And so
I thought that was sad.
They just need to be together. Anyways, stupid.
I know. I thought, okay, so at so many points I thought Phoebe was going to be with Lila. Phoebe was going to be like, I'm just looking for her romance. And obviously, she's a strong, independent woman. She doesn't need a man. But I thought her and Jim would have been sweet together. But then toward the end, she goes, he's like a brother to me. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, no, her and Jim were never right. They were never right.
I guess, but they were like similar age.
Yeah.
And then he also confesses to her. He's like, well, you know that like I liked Lila first.
Yeah.
And she's like, wait, what? Because she knows that Lila has these fantasies about him as well. And he says that he was out working one day and he kept seeing her come in and out. And then she basically had a breakdown when her dad passed away. Mm-hmm. But also, I guess they like shared a special moment. And he's the reason why Gary went to the gallery, because he was supposed to be his wingman, which I thought was kind of sad. And he's like, I knew that Gary was amazing. And once they saw it as like a sign, like I just wanted him to be happy. So I just let him have it, which is like... I don't know. Also, what did you think about them always saying, like, you need to finish your stupid seaplane?
Like, I felt bad because I think he just was, like, lost, you know? I think he just was, it's one of those things where it feels good to have something that you're working towards, but you get stuck in life when it's like, oh, yeah, it was the same exact thing with her and her book. It's like, oh, I'm working on my book, but it's like, you're never actually working on your book. You're just saying that you're working on your book, you know? So it's just something that people need to have something to talk about and to say that they're doing even when they're not.
I'm like, what do I do that's like that?
Me with cleaning my room. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm working on cleaning my room. And then I just like actually literally never do it.
I feel like that was me for so long about moving here.
Yeah. Well,
no, like, yeah, and I'm gonna move to London.
No, I feel like for the longest time it was I'm gonna move to New York, and then you moved to New York, and then it turned in I'm gonna move to London, and then you moved to London.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, you did it. You did it. So now we're on the rehearsal dinner. This is like literally going to be a 3-hour long episode. So if you're still with us, thank you. We love you. Okay. So basically now Phoebe is tasked with getting Gary's tux and alcohol. And she also hears back from one of the, What's
funny because these are my notes.
Oh, yeah, these are her notes, so we'll see how well I can follow them. But so her and Gary go out and about in the car, and they're like, okay, we're going to pick up your tux, we're going to go to get it in, we're going to get your haircut, we're going to pick up the alcohol, whatever. Gary's back hurts from surfing, all this stuff. We need to pick up gas X for Lila because she had cabbage, like all these things, right? So She gets a call back from one of the Craigslist rentals that she reached out to because she was like, okay, I kind of want to stay in this area. Maybe I'll find an apartment. Maybe I'll find a condo. But she found this mansion that needed a winter, what did they call it? A winter
keeper, I think.
A winter keeper, where it's like all these people live in the fantasy mansions over the summer, but they need someone to preserve it and make sure it's okay during the winter. So they end up going to this house to tour the house, and Phoebe's like, I don't really have any experience with keeping Victorian mansions, but like I've done a lot of research. And the guy's like, yeah, show yourself around. Like, this is great, whatever. And she's starting to picture like, oh, maybe I could live here, all this stuff. And Gary's like, yeah, I think you'd be great, whatever. And he kind of casually, but not casually, is like, oh, well, if there's any ghosts here, like, you'll need somebody to call. So here's my number. And I was kind of like, okay, you guys are starting to toe the line of cheating a little bit.
I know.
It was a little bit like, ooh, awkward. But that was kind of how it was the whole day. It was like they were running these errands together, doing very normal things together. She takes him to the barber where he gets his beard all cut off. And she was like, whoa, this is crazy.
I didn't realize that he had a long beard throughout.
Yeah, I think it was supposed to. I think I was picturing it like Ben's beard, like a nice full beard, but not like crazy. But then he gets his beard taken off because Lila was like, we don't want your beard for the wedding.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, which is crazy. It's like, let the man have the beard. But he basically like confesses that he likes her, you know? And they're kind of both like, like,
and he goes, what are you pretending? And I'm pretending that you're pretending that it's pretending. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a lot for me. I was like, oh, you guys.
Yeah. It was weird. And so they go back to the hotel and they're all kind of like, when they get to the rehearsal area, somebody has set up, I think the mom specifically, set up the painting of her naked body. And was like, oh, well, this means so much to you guys. So they're all kind of like, like inside joking about this painting and being weird. And when Jim and Lila are having like a sweet little moment when they're talking, it says they describe it as an uncanny moment when the universe is presenting the right order of things, or at least another possible order of things. And it's like Phoebe sees this little moment of Jim and Lila having a conversation and being like, this, like, the universe is kind of testing us and being like, see, this is how it could be, you know? Where these two are supposed to be together and her and Gary are supposed to be together. And I felt like throughout the book, there was so much talk about signs from the universe. And I feel like I always look for signs in things. Do you feel like you do that? Or not so much?
I feel like I don't. Like, I think I used to. Mm-hmm. And then now I don't know that I'm waiting for something else to happen, maybe.
I see that. I do that so much. But I think
I know you do.
And it's interesting, too, because I feel like, for me, as someone with a lot of anxiety, I've heard that anxiety can manifest itself as signs. So it's like, oh, this is a sign that I'm not supposed to do it. Where it's like, oh, you need to trust your gut. But it's like, if you have anxiety, your gut is going to tell you to not do a lot of things. Like, that's not your gut telling you that. It's your anxiety telling you that. So I try to somewhat take that into account. But I feel like I'm like such a firm believer in listen to your gut and kind of follow what the universe is telling you. But it's funny because I feel like a lot of people are really not like that at all. Well, they do what's logical.
I feel like in my mind, like Lila knew that Gary wasn't right, but she also might have not known that Jim was right. Like, I don't think that the moral there was like, she should be with Jim. It was just that she shouldn't be with Gary. But I think that because she had invested so much into the wedding already, she's like, I'm in too deep. Like, whatever signs, like, signs don't matter. Like, I paid $1 million to get these flowers flown in or whatever. So I think she was like in too deep, where some people would see signs when you're in too deep and be like, this is my sign to get out. She was just like, it's too late kind of thing.
Yeah. It's funny because at this point I was really thinking that the ending was going to be that she was going to be like, I can't go through with this wedding. Like, you marry him instead. It's like, we're all here. Might as well just do it. I literally thought she was going to be like, here's, take my wedding dress. I literally thought that too,
but like, that's not that type of book.
Yeah. Funny. But then, like, Gary is kind of watching her or Phoebe flirt with Jim. Like, then he's kind of feeling like, oh, some type of way about that. And she's like, well, maybe I'll just sleep with Jim. Like, whatever. Who am I going to be with?
Maybe I'll sleep with
this
Roy.
wedding?
And then Roy's like, hey, you want a foof? And she's like, no.
She's like, never mind. Yeah.
No.
So then they're sitting there and Jim does his speech, but she was like, Lila's like, oh, sorry, Phoebe, your speech got cut out. And Jim's speech ended up being really sweet.
I thought that their dynamic kind of showed again, where she's like, all the speeches are cut, and he's like, no, you're not doing this. And he like looks at her and then like smiles, and he's like, and when Gary and I like just kind of starts into his speech.
Yeah, he just did it anyway.
Yeah. I thought that was
like,
funny. Again, she should be with Gary, but like probably not. And then when Jim does his speech, he like basically talks about Lila and how fly she is and how amazing she is, and she's kind of like,
yeah. Which it was like, for an outsider, it just turned out to be like, oh, this is the best friend of the groom. How sweet that he's complimenting her. But then later they get back to the hotel and Lila's like, oh, well, how dare he like flirt with me in front of all these people, blah, blah, blah. So then her and Phoebe end up getting into an argument. And I don't even remember what this was about. They like went back to the hotel room and were arguing. Because I think, wasn't it like, oh,
Phoebe's like, you're a brat.
Yeah, she was like, you're a brat. And she's like, I was literally going to kill myself and you never once asked me, how are you doing or are you okay? Yeah. You just wanted to come in here and complain about the wedding and stuff. And they kind of, this is when they were talking a lot more about their friendship. And it said, friendship is just hard. It requires radical honesty. And I feel like this was a first for both Phoebe and Lila. Like they both needed radical honesty from the other person, which is what they got because they had no barrier.
Yeah.
Because they had just met each other. So they were like, we have nothing to lose.
Strangers.
I'm just going to say. Yeah. So it was kind of like a nice way for them to both learn how to have a friendship because they had never had true, honest friends before because like Nat and Sue's kind of sucked.
Yeah.
Mia obviously sucked because she ended up with her ex-husband, whatever, blah, blah, blah.
We haven't even talked that much about Matt, but just know everybody that I freaking hate his guts.
Yeah, well, he comes back, which literally is the next thing. Juice gets drunk, first of all, at the wedding, throws up, all this stuff, da-da-da. Matt shows up.
Sad and crying. Yeah, so Juice goes up with Phoebe to her room, falls asleep there, and is like, I miss my mom. I miss her so much. Like, so heartbreaking. Mm-hmm. And then Gary comes and finds her. However, Matt comes and finds her first. So someone knocks on the door. I know all it says is Matt shows up. So he knocks on the door and is like, oh, wait, Gary is in the room with Phoebe. He goes, Phoebe? She goes, Matt? And then Gary's like, okay, I guess I'll leave you guys to it. They have this whole, like, he just starts talking about how he shouldn't have left her and all this stuff. And you know what? All I got to say is I hate him. I hate him because he's doing exactly what he did to her now to Mia. And he, like, talks about how you have some notes in here, but my thought was, like, he talked about how I feel like it's not my life. Like, I'm just there playing a part with Mia and her daughter. And I feel like that's so selfish.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. People don't agree with my takes, but I feel like it's so selfish of him to do that to her all over again. Come back thinking that he can be, like, a savior after not talking to her for 2 years. She's like, I lived literally 15 minutes from you for 2 whole years and you never once came by the house. Mm-hmm. Like, hello. But he does say that he buried Harry, and I think that's when she, like, softens up.
Well, but it was so annoying, too, because he was first telling her and saying, like, why didn't you tell me that Harry died? And she said, why would I tell you you left? It's like, it's like he was, like, gaslighting her. It's like, well, why didn't you tell me? It's like, you were the one that broke up with me, not the other way around. So why would I?
And you didn't even ask to take the cat. Like, if you loved Harry so much, wouldn't you try to take the cat?
No, it was like, dude, goodbye. Like, I put it in all caps. He is not entitled to any information anymore, but I hate him. So annoying.
I know. She needs to, like, block him.
But then, of course, she lets him, like, sleep over and stuff. And it said, and I got this, it said, she knows that real life is waiting for her on the beach. Yet in here, it is warm. Here is her husband. And so it's kind of like that feeling when it's, even when you know something's not right, if it's comfortable, it's just so much easier to just say, I'm just going to stay in it versus it's like metaphorically, like you're either going to be on a cold, windy beach with strangers or you're going to be snuggled up in your bed. It's like, of course, everybody's going to want to be snuggled up in their bed.
Yeah.
Like you're going to just go with what you know.
That's what it is. Like when you get too comfortable in any situation, it just becomes like all you know. And again, it is literally comfortable. So it's so much harder for someone to leave when you're back in there with him versus like maybe she's been telling herself this whole time, like, I'm never going to be with him again. Like, Matt wronged me, all this stuff. And then he shows up and she's like, frick.
Yeah.
Now I have to actually do something about it because he's here and I wanted to yell at him so many times before. He's here now and I can't. So
yeah.
I feel like she was strong enough though in the end, which I'm proud of.
I know. I love that. But and it's also like a certainty thing where it's like, okay, I know what my life is like with Matt. I know that I was uncomfortable, but it was comfortable. You know, it's like it wasn't perfect and I was kind of sad, but I miss him and it was comfortable versus if I'm not with him, I don't know if I'm going to be with Gary. Like as of now, Gary's getting married. Like who am I going to be? What am I going to do? So it's kind of that choice now she's being presented.
But it was also,
it's like, do I go back to my old life or not? It was
sad because he was like, I didn't understand. Like, and I empathized with him there where he's like, I was also really depressed.
Yeah.
And I couldn't be dragged down even further with your depression. But it's like, it's hard to be there for someone when you're also going through something. But with the whole infertility thing, which he's like, I should have thought about it. Like, we should have adopted. I feel like now she doesn't even want kids. Like, that's really not the life that she wants. Yeah. So he isn't meeting her there either. He's still kind of like putting some of his ideas onto her, and she's just kind of like, I don't know, I felt like she was kind of just there. Like, she was kind of like having an out-of-body experience, not really feeling anything because she was like in shock. And she's like, and I am right back to where I was before he left, kind of thing.
Yeah. And I hated how assumptive he was about it. It's like he expected to just show up and be like, oh, you want me, right? It's like, dude, it's been so long. Like, how did he just assume he could show up and be like, well.
And he literally cheated on her and left her.
Fully. Ugh. Anyway, I hate him.
Like, how he went back to Mia after all of that, like, yeah.
But then they fall asleep and wake up and now it's wedding day.
Yep.
Which is just crazy.
That's right, sister.
You want to take this one?
I could do this one and then you can end it for us on Monday. So on Sunday is the wedding day. I noticed a few things throughout, but the biggest thing for me was obviously Lila's visibly upset. Like, everybody's getting their hair done. For whatever reason, Phoebe gets bangs. Like, Lila's getting ready and Jim shows up. And one of the bigger arguments the night before was that they were going to be late for the fireworks. And that's why Jim and Phoebe weren't going to do their speech because the fireworks were going to go on. But they never brought the palette cleansers, like the lemon cake, whatever, palette cleanser things. And then he shows up with all of them and is like, here you go. I felt like, I'm like, this is what I thought. This was like the big grand gesture. Like, Jim and Lila forever, they're going to get married. Like, screw everybody. Like, let's run away together. Because this is like my typical love story. But I felt like it really went to show again, like, how much more Jim knew her than even Gary. Like, I feel like Gary didn't do anything. And when they were having the big argument, he just stood there. So going again to show that Jim and Lila, forever and always, he brings the spoons. They're all kind of eating them. And before she leaves, she like actually takes one and she eats one. She's feeling very thoughtful. And then Phoebe's basically just like reassuring her about like the wedding. Yes, he loves you. Is this what you want to hear? Like, do you want me to reassure you that he loves you? Because he does, kind of thing. And then this is when the car shows up. So they're heading downstairs. The car shows up after the other car was vandalized. And Phoebe had been in charge of telling Pauline, the front desk person, to get them a new car for the wedding. But apparently it's just like an Uber Black, like a regular, like,
it was like a Mercedes,
limo.
like a new Mercedes.
Yeah, like a regular like Mercedes wedding car, which I feel like would be totally fine. But the car shows up, it's all wrong, and Lila has a breakdown. And this is what we were saying before, where it's like she was looking for signs in a way, and like this was it. This was like the last straw for her.
Because she's like, I knew something was going to go wrong. And it's like, Lila, it's literally a car. Like, it doesn't matter at all. And Phoebe was pissed. She's like, are you freaking kidding me? Are you freaking kidding me right now?
And that's essentially what like makes her break down. And she's like, I can't get married. Like, I'm not marrying Gary. She's like all frustrated. But then you had a good quote in here from Phoebe after she gives her. Phoebe's like, well, I guess I'm not doing my speech at your wedding, so I might as well just do it now.
Yeah. She like, because they start talking then, and they're like, she's basically comforting Lila and is like, why are you freaking out about this kind of thing? And she's like, oh, it's just this big waste. Lila's like, what a waste. Like, if I don't end up marrying him, what was the point of all of this? And this was really sweet. Phoebe said, but it's also true that this wedding will never be a waste because I came here to die, but now look at me. So it's like maybe the wedding, that was the whole point of it, is just so that Phoebe could live, you know? Because like if the wedding hadn't been going on, she would have showed up to the hotel and would have just killed herself. Like, that's what Lila was put there for, and maybe it didn't work out, but that was a sweet moment.
And I'm a firm believer of like everything happens for a reason kind of thing. Like this thing leads to this thing, leads to this thing, and like like if whoever was doing the room reservations wouldn't have gave her one, and she showed up, and then she got sucked in, and like all these things. I really like that quote too, because I came here to die, and now look at me. Like, that's so sad. Yeah. She's like, look at me. Like, I did all of this on your freaking way, and I'm your maid of honor, and now you're not going to get married.
Yeah. I know, it's crazy. But then, then Lila's like, all right, I guess the wedding's off. Because she was like, I don't actually want this. Which was just crazy.
Yeah, the wedding is off. And she's like, where should I go? Somewhere I've never been with before. And she's like, I guess Canada. I'm like, all right.
And the front desk lady's like, I mean, I can call you a flight to Canada, and you can go to one of our sister properties. Like, okay.
Yeah. And then Phoebe ends up taking the car back and is like thoughtfully looking out the window, and she walks down the aisle, eye contact with Gary, saying, hello, your wife is no longer. And she's laughed. Like, there will be no wedding today.
Yikes.
And I don't register when he leaves, but I guess like he leaves, and then she announces to everybody the wedding is called off. Everybody's like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. Such a waste, such a waste. And then she drives back with Matt in the car, her husband, ex-husband, and she's like, we're not doing this again. And he's like crying like a friggin' baby that he is.
He's so annoying.
And then they part ways. So that is the end of her and Matt. Sad, but had to happen, and I'm proud of her for being so strong.
Yeah.
One of my things, this was my friendship again note, is her friends, I guess it didn't say, they never went to go find her. They like never went to go console her. They like are checking out of the hotel that night.
And they're like, oh, good thing we got our flights changed. I miss my husband. I miss my wife. I miss my kid, my little worm. Like, gotta go.
I'm like, hello? Yeah. I thought that was really weird. And again, they're not good friends, but peace and love. They're friends in their own way. And then the chapter ends. Day of the wedding. She's like inspired. She has another night in the hotel because she was trying to extend it longer and she couldn't.
Yeah.
And she essentially starts writing her like novel again after rereading the speech that was essentially supposed to be the wedding speech, but she's like, actually, I think this could be more of like a paper on, weddings and different books and Victorian eras kind of thing. So she's like writing it up all night, and she's like, I don't need alcohol, I don't need drugs, I don't need anything. Like, I'm like feeling so alive kind of thing, which I thought was like kind of like a good image to paint of like her like just in her room like scribbling and being like so excited about something all over again.
I could totally picture it as like a movie.
Yeah, me too. For so long, it was just like her not being able to complete anything in like her book for literally 10 years or whatever. And now she's like starting again.
Mm-hmm. So now we're on the final day, Monday, the wedding brunch. So she kind of wakes up and nobody really, like, she doesn't know where Gary is after the wedding was called off. She doesn't know where he went the night before. And she was kind of like, do I text him? Do I go find him? What do I do? Do I give him space? She kind of didn't really know what to do. So she goes down to the lobby and everybody's having brunch. And they're like, Marla's like, well, I'm going to eat the brunch because like, what are they going to do? They're going to throw it out. And she's like, well, isn't it bad that there was no wedding and you're going to eat the brunch? But they're there eating brunch and they're telling all these stories about him. And like, she said something about how she thought that they were telling the stories for her.
Yeah, she's like, they're telling her stories. They're all looking at her and being like, and then Gary did this. And then remember when Gary did this? And she's like, and they're all telling me stories. Like, and my thought process was like, she thinks they're telling her stories for her sake because that's what she wants to see. She wants to see like a potential future with Gary where everybody in his family is like likes her and wants her to hear about how he was when he was little and all these things. My comment was like, girl, calm down. Like, he literally just got left in the altar and you now think you have like a sweet, sweet future with him when give him 5 minutes.
That's so funny. So then at this point, Lila is now in Canada with her mom, random. And she decides to go shopping for a suitcase because she doesn't have a suitcase. So Phoebe's out and about, and she ends up like communicating with Gary at this point. She's like, "Where are you?" And he said he's in the hot tub. And so she rushes her little booty back to the hotel, and she goes and finds.
She's literally running with her suitcase.
Yeah, she's got her little suitcase. She's running back, and Marla, Juice, and Gary are all at the hot tub. And of course, it's like a callback to the previous, hot tub moment or whatever. And we both put this quote in here where it's, "The groom is no longer a groom. Now he's just a man in a hot tub." And it's like, that's what she wanted all along. Like, here he is. He's the man in the hot tub. So then Juice goes to jump in the pool. Marla leaves. So then they get to just chit chat. And it was interesting because she was kind of reflecting back on her husband leaving her. And I really liked this quote because she said, it was brave for him to leave and for packing a suitcase and leaving the house because the house was sick. And I thought that was a really interesting way to paint it. It's like, the house is sick. The walls have seen too much. Like, it's like, it's not a house or it's not a home anymore. I thought that was interesting imagery. I really liked that.
Which is, I feel like, gives her like the ammo that she needs to like kind of leave it all behind, because like she's not, I guess in her mind she's like on the road to healing.
Yeah. And she said too, it's so much easier to sit in things and wait for something to save us. And so she's kind of at this point where she's like, I'm taking my life into my own hands. I'm going to go home. I'm going to pack up my things. I'm going to move out, and I'm going to come back, and I'm going to do my little winter, estate keeper thing or whatever. So yeah, she decides she's going to go back home, and it says, one of the quotes was, "Becoming who you want to be is just like anything else. It takes practice. It requires belief that one day you'll wake up and be a natural at it." So she's like, okay, this is my new life. I'm going to do what I can. I'm going to fake it till I make it. Like, I'm choosing this. And she's off to the races.
Period.
Off to the races, period. And it was
my last
open-ended.
thing was, it was very open-ended. I liked that in the end she didn't end up with anybody. Lila didn't end up with anybody. Jim is in his seaplane and Gary's in the hot tub, like how things are meant to be. And then in the end she goes, "Oh well," he says, like, "If you see ghosts, like, can I call you?" And he says, "What about if I don't see any ghosts?" And then he says, "Call me anyway." And I was like, okay, Gary.
Sweet.
Gary, man.
That's sweet. Okay, so our cameras keep dying, so we're going to wrap it up here. This is a 2-hour-long episode, everyone. What were your final thoughts? Like, give me your overall thoughts and rating for this.
I feel like I went through a roller coaster of emotions. We talked about it in the beginning. I felt really upset in the beginning with just like the overload of all of her emotions and her sadness, but throughout the book I felt her getting lighter, and I felt myself getting lighter. So I was happy, and I was like hopeful, and I think in the beginning I didn't see a way out, and now I feel like I see so many like journeys for her that she could take, like the housekeeper stuff, or maybe she goes with this person, then maybe she ends up with Gary, like who freaking knows, but she has options. So I feel hopeful. I really liked it. I would recommend it for someone who likes to go through that kind of journey when reading, but I do not think it's for everybody, to be honest.
Yeah. I think that's also how I felt, is like, I don't think that this at its core is the type of book that I love to read. So I can see objectively why so many people love this book, because it really does. I put this in the same category as like The Midnight Library, which we both loved. It's like, it really makes you think and reflect on your own life. There were so many one-liners in there that I was highlighting, like so much that I took away from it. And I do think that us talking about it makes me like it a lot more. This is like something you really need to dissect. But it's not I was literally so depressed in the beginning. I felt like most of the book, honestly, until like 60, 70%, I kind of had to force myself to read it. Like I wasn't into it. So it's hard for me to rate this one, just because, and I can see why they kept it open-ended, but I wish that we got a little bit more closure. But I feel like that's like the whole point, it's that she had so many options.
But I do think that I agree with you where you kind of have to talk through it, or else you're bombarded with like all of her emotions and boom, boom, boom. I didn't get into it until I was at least 45% through, like according to my Kindle. And then after that, I was like excited to continue reading it and seeing what happened because of Lila, because of Marla, because of all these characters. But I think it was a bit hard to get into. I'm glad I stuck through it, but I don't know that I would have if I didn't necessarily like have to.
Yeah. So what's your final rating? Give it the stamp of approval. So my rating,
I'm giving it a 4 out of 5 because I do like it. Similar to Midnight Library, I feel like I learned a lot, and it's good for me to just branch out. I think it's really well written. I do still feel like I missed some chunks of information, like the mom, the dad. Like, I don't know if that was supposed to matter as much as I pay attention to characters, but 4 out of 5, I really liked it. I loved Phoebe's character development. I loved Lila's, just like seeing her and Gary, and then Gary and Juice, and I don't know. I felt like everybody, toward the end, I was like, I want to go to the freaking wedding. Like,
I know. Nice. I feel like there's always, like, in this type of story, a character that everyone can relate to in a way. So it's like watching really character-heavy stories like this is fun because you really get to see how they change over time and, like, get into the weeds of their characters kind of thing.
Yeah. And I liked how it was, like, kind of two main characters for me, like Phoebe and Lila.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked it. Yeah,
I liked it too. What was your rating?
It's hard because I really try hard not to do half ratings because I feel like on Goodreads and stuff, like, there's no 0.5 ratings. But I feel
there
like
is on Fable.
I know on Fable there is, and I'm hoping that Goodreads will add it. Because I feel like this would be more of a 3.5 for me, but I would round it up to a 4. I definitely don't think it's a true 3 because I feel like a 3 for me, it's like I didn't hate it, but this one, like, I felt like I have takeaways from it, and I think this is something that I might continue to think about. But yeah, like you said, it started off rough, and I felt that a lot of it was quite slow. And there was a lot of parts that I wasn't fully engaged in it. But I do think that objectively it was written very well. I liked the characters. I liked the setting. I liked the premise of the book. I thought it was really interesting. Not super predictable, but predictable enough, you know? So yeah, I think I would give it a 4. I ended up liking it.
I also liked that we both went into it kind of not having any idea what we were going to do.
Yeah. Oh, it was like the whole thing about her killing herself, it happened early on, but it was a big shocker. I was like, hello?
Yeah. I was like, wait, did you know this? And you're like, oh, well.
No, it was crazy. So this is very different than what I thought it was going to be, like a little love story rom-com, but it was not that.
Yeah, I did too.
You have to be in the right mood for it.
Yeah, I think it's a good winter transition book, maybe spring. Like, I think we read it at the right time. I think it was perfect.
Yeah. Yay. Well, guys, normally we would
hope everyone liked it. Let us know what you actually thought too. I'll go back and read some of the Fable comments, but
yes,
if you resonated with anything that we said,
yeah, please let us know in the comments. You can add comments on Spotify as well if you're listening on Spotify or obviously YouTube. We also, like we said, have the Instagram broadcast channel, which you can find through my Instagram, but we both have access to it. And then Fable is where we can chat, like, chapter by chapter as we go through the books. Normally in our book club podcast episodes, we will do a fan casting as if this were a movie casting. This episode is already way too long, so we will not make you sit through that. Because we want to talk about what we're reading for March, because we have a new book, obviously, since we're done with The Wedding People. So if you want to be involved in voting for that, you got to join the broadcast channel on Instagram. But everyone has chosen, so we'll do a little synopsis.
Yay!
Surprise! I'll hold it up to the camera.
Bodyguard.
It is The Bodyguard by Catherine Center. You've never read anything by her, right?
No, I'm excited.
She does. I'm trying to remember the name of the one that's really popular. I think this is one of her, like, newer ones, potentially. But this is a romance, so we're getting back into, like, kind of a more chill, fluffy, nice, like, spring romance situation. But basically, this story, it sounds quite funny. It's about a woman named Hannah who gets hired as a professional bodyguard for this superstar actor named Jack because he has, like, a crazy stalker ex-girlfriend. So, and it says she's like a corgi breeder or something, which is so random, but I love corgis.
What?
Yeah, it literally says, corgi breeding stalker. Middle-aged corgi breeding stalker, to be specific.
Oh, wow.
So he's super famous, but he kind of went off the grid a few years ago because his mom got sick. And so he goes back home to Texas, doesn't want the family to know about the stalker. So him and Hannah, the bodyguard, pretend to date against Hannah's better judgment. So it's like a fake dating little romance situation.
Cute.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm excited.
So it sounds fun. So that is what we're reading next. Our next episode will be coming out March 3rd, where we'll be doing our February reading wrap up and our March TBR. So you can join us there. But otherwise, I feel like we're done here.
This has been so long. If you're still here, thank you so much.
We love you guys. And
I hope you guys like The Wedding People as much as I did.
Yeah. What is that Haley, what is her name quote? Where it's like, oh, well, that's my life. I hope you enjoyed it because I know I did. Hillary Duff.
I don't know what that is.
Well, my camera's about to die once again, so I'll say goodbye to you all.
Okay. Well, bye, friends.
Goodbye. See you soon.